Chapter 1703. She was inexplicably displeased, but she could only endure it for now. After all, she had just entered Shantian Prefecture. As the saying went, even a powerful dragon could not suppress a local snake. In the future, when she found out where their nest was, she would make them suffer. Arbor jumped onto the snow leopard's back with a flip. He narrowed his black eyes and solemnly glanced at the group of masked gray-clothed people. "Today, all of you will stay here for me," Arbor said coldly, his eyes devoid of any warmth. He looked at them as if he was looking at a group of dead people. The leader of the masked gray-clothed people couldn't help but snicker, but he didn't say anything. He merely waved his hand resolutely, and the group of spiritual cultivators threw away the bows in their hands. They each picked up their handy weapons and surrounded Arbor, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. The little fat squirrel swung its several-meter-long tail and smacked a person's head. Everyone watched helplessly as their teammate was instantly smashed into meat paste by a fat squirrel's tail. Almost all of them stopped in their tracks as their bodies stiffened slightly. The two beasts beside Miss Xiao seemed to be extraordinary. The group was a bit apprehensive of the two beasts' martial prowess, so they hesitated and didn't dare to step forward for the time being. However, Arbor wouldn't be courteous to them. A thin piece of paper abruptly flew out from her conscience. Ever since the battle at the Holy Water Sect's main peak, she had never taken out this Tianji treasure blueprint to use. Especially when she was only a mere level 11 mystic cultivator back then, but she had already risked her life to open the fourth layer of the Tianji treasure blueprint and triggered it to launch an indiscriminate AoE attack. Then now, she could already easily activate the fifth and even sixth layers of the Tianji treasure blueprint. This Tianji treasure blueprint was clearly a divine weapon. Senior Tianji Z had probably stored all the concealed weapons he had made in his lifetime into this Tianji treasure blueprint. The combination of the two had enormous power. Moreover, there was a feeling of an inexhaustible supply. Because this Tianji treasure blueprint itself was similar to a concealed weapon box for storing concealed weapons, Xiao Mu still hadn't figured out how much capital the Tianji master had invested back then and how many concealed weapons he had placed inside. Of course, a portion of the hidden weapons could still be recycled into the Tianji treasure blueprint. She didn't need to waste any effort. After the battle, she just needed to take out the Tianji treasure blueprint again and walk around the arena. Hidden weapons that could be used continuously without any damage would naturally be recalled by it. Xiao Mu had once carefully calculated that when the Tianji treasure blueprint activated its fifth layer of offense, it could currently continuously fire out 18 types of hidden weapons in a single second. Who could withstand such a wave of attacks? 1 second was just the blink of an eye. When the Tianji treasure blueprint was summoned, one would basically die on the spot. At this moment, Xiao Mu summoned this Tianji treasure blueprint out from her conscience, and she coldly swept her gaze across the 30 masked men in gray. Since she said that she would make all of these people stay, then she would naturally fulfill her promise. With a move of her mystic conscience, the Tianji treasure blueprint unfurled in front of everyone. It stretched for several meters and was enveloped in golden light. Arbor sat on the snow leopard's back and coldly gazed at the group of masked men in gray. Secretly, an endless stream of mystic conscience frantically surged into the Tianji treasure blueprint. A hint of faintly frightened expression appeared on the faces of all the masked men. Chapter 1704. In the next moment, everyone saw the Tianji treasure blueprint release streaks of dazzling light that were extremely intense and dazzling. The dazzling light formed a beam of light that directly shot into those bodies. Instantly, dozens of masked men in gray bore the brunt of the attack and were savagely torn to shreds by the dazzling light. The might of the attack was so great that the 20 masked men behind him trembled in fear when they saw it. Without even thinking about it, those gray-robed men all retreated backwards to hide. However, was that possible? How could the Tianji treasure blueprint be so easy to hide from? What awaited them was only the fate of being exterminated. When the Tianji treasure blueprint was opened, it attacked indiscriminately and directly killed nearly 200 mystic cultivators. Now, these 30 spiritual cultivators paled in comparison. They were simply not enough to fill the gaps between the Tianji treasure blueprint's teeth. So what if they were spiritual cultivators? Even if Arbor did not open the Tianji treasure blueprint, these little spiritual cultivators below level 7 might not necessarily be at a disadvantage if they fought side by side with Little Snow and Qiuqiu. She was just too lazy to do it herself anymore. Since they wanted to die so much, she would grant their wish. The leading masked man in gray broke out in a cold sweat that dripped down his forehead. However, before he could open his mouth to beg Arbor for mercy, the Tianji treasure blueprint's indiscriminate attack had already arrived in front of him. That strange beam of light caused a trace of extreme fear in his heart. What kind of hidden weapon was this? Arbor looked curiously at the hundreds of mirrors that suddenly jumped out of the Tianji treasure blueprint. These mirrors seemed to be arranged in a very orderly manner. When the light beams that intertwined with each other landed on a person's body, they could actually directly penetrate the body of a spiritual cultivator below level 4. It could be seen that Senior Tianji Z was most likely well versed in mechanisms, hidden weapons, and even formations. However, Senior Xuanji actually wanted such a powerful senior to use her strength to crush his disciple. This was truly a strange request. In the future, she really would have to make things difficult for Senior Tianji Z's personal disciple. The Tianji treasure map created by Senior Tianji Z had given her a lot of help. When she thought about how she would be forced to make things difficult for his personal disciple in the future, Miss Qiao felt a sense of indescribable emotions. By the time the late headmaster Yun arrived, Xiao Mu had already set off a ring of fire outside the cave, burning those masked gray-clothed people clean before running away. Yun Fei glanced at the mountain forest that had almost been razed to the ground in astonishment. Then, he could only click his tongue in admiration. It was rare for Ah Sun's disciple to be so vicious and merciless. Looking at the burnt corpses on the ground, there were at least 30 people here. But now, those people who wanted to kill Miss Qiao had all left this world. Yun Zong sighed inwardly. After erasing all traces of Miss Qiao's presence in the area, he quietly left. When Fan Gu sent out another group of people to search the area, the news they brought back caused Fan Gu to be extremely furious. There's no trace at all. Without a trace? How could there be no trace at all? She had clearly sent out 30 level 4 spiritual cultivators to capture Arbor, so why did they disappear without a trace? Fan Gu flew into a rage and raged within the Clear Heaven sect. Fan Qiohe comforted her and sent out a portion of the Clear Heaven sect disciples to secretly inquire about Arbor. However, ever since Arbor had entered the top academy, it had been difficult for news to spread. Chapter 1705. After dealing with the evil creatures of the Clear Sky faction, Arbor was naturally in a good mood. She summoned the Green Luan and took it back to the lava mountains. The Green Luan let out a cry. As soon as it flew to the foot of the mountain, it saw a thrilling scene. 2 huge black, unknown corpse birds were attacking a caravan passing by Qiqi Mountain. The 2 corpse birds were 2/3 the size of the Green Luan. There was not a single strand of hair on their wings, leaving only bits and pieces of rotten flesh hanging on them. The 2 corpse birds were attacking the caravan, and there were casualties in the caravan. The women and children were shrieking in terror as they retreated. The leader of the caravan was a middle-aged man. He was about to lead the caravan to Anka City, but they were attacked by corpse birds before they passed by Qiqi Mountain. It was not that the caravan had not encountered dirty things like corpse puppets along the way, but the 2 corpse birds this time were so big that they could not deal with them. When the 2 corpse birds swooped down from the sky, they were so fast that they were dazzling. The 2 frightened women sat paralyzed on the ground, unable to escape at all. Just as one of the corpse birds was about to tear her arm with its claws, the sharp cry of a Green Luan came from the sky. A crossbow arrow with a black light shot into the corpse bird's claws with a whoosh. The two corpse birds let out unpleasant cries and flapped their wings to fly to the side. Arbor fired 5 consecutive arrows with her crow crossbow. Not to mention 2 corpse birds, even 4 or 5 of them would be shot down by her. There were many women and children in the caravan. They must have paid part of their supplies and followed the caravan to Anka City for food and clothing. However, many of them did not expect that Anka City would be right in front of them, but they did not even have the chance to enter the city alive. After pressing down on Qinghuan, Xiao Mu jumped down gracefully from Qinghuan's back. The 2 corpse birds lay on the side of the mountain road, dying. Only their wings moved slightly. Arbor walked forward without a word, pulled out a dagger, and dug out the crystal cores in the heads of the 2 corpse birds. The remaining members of the caravan looked at her with pale faces and trembling lips. They didn't know why, but when they saw how skillful she was in digging out the crystal cores, they felt a little emotional. She was so young, but her little face was expressionless, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. The leader quickly walked up and cupped his fists respectfully at Xiao Mu. "Honorable Miss, thank you for saving our entire caravan. If it wasn't for Arbor's help, their team would have been wiped out." Arbor just nodded at him with an indifferent expression. To be honest, she had stopped when she saw that there was a crystal core in the heads of these 2 corpse birds. As for saving them, it was just a matter of convenience. Therefore, whether these people thanked her or not was actually not that important to Xiao Mu. "Miss, we are from the Jean Mantang mercenary group. This is just a small token of our respect." Arbor was stunned. She looked at the small bag of things that the leader handed to her and shook her head. "It's nothing. You don't have to give me this." Looking at the travel-worn people in the caravan, they didn't look like rich people. Why would she want to exploit them? "Take it, Mississippi. This is a small token of our Jean Mantang mercenary group's appreciation. I can't take it anymore. I'll wake up and catch up on the second watch." Chapter 1706. "No, you must accept it." The captain of the Jean Mantang mercenary group was a man in his early 30s with a short black beard. At this time, he sincerely handed the small bag back to Xiao Mu and earnestly said, "If it weren't for Miss saving us, we would all be dead by now. This is just a small token of appreciation from our Jean Mantang mercenary group. Please accept it. It's not much, it's just a small bag of ordinary food. Please don't refuse it anymore." Seeing the team leader's sincere expression, Xiao Mu nodded and accepted the small pouch he handed over. At this moment, cries filled the mountain path. Due to the attack earlier, the caravan suffered quite a lot of casualties. He saw a middle-aged man holding a broken body and crying for a while. Then, he stood up shakily and walked to the leader. He shouted at him angrily, "Captain Jean. Didn't you say that we're about to reach Anka City and that there's no more danger? Why did my son die? Why didn't you save my son first? I hired your mercenary group to ensure our safety during the caravan's journey, but what did you do? You'd rather save a lowly woman than save my son. I want you to pay with your life. Give my son back, give him back." The middle-aged man wailed. There was a woman half kneeling next to him with her head drooped. She was trembling and hugging herself into a ball. It was clear that she was also in great shock earlier. It turned out that the middle-aged man's son was attacked at the same time as another woman in the caravan. Captain Jean did not say who he was going to save or not. He only saved the woman because she was closer to him, so it was more convenient for him to save her. The middle-aged man's son was killed in the sudden attack. The Jean Mantang mercenary group accepted a mission to protect the caravan, and the middle-aged man was considered a big boss who paid the majority of the money. In addition, the mercenary group also accepted a few small missions at the same time, including bringing some old, weak, women, and children to Anka City. Back then, Captain Jean had discussed with the middle-aged man and said that he would waive a portion of his fees if he brought the old, weak, women, and children with him, and the middle-aged man readily agreed. Now, he was telling him that he shouldn't save others but his son. But to Captain Jean, as long as it was a member of his caravan, he would treat everyone equally regardless of their status. However, the middle-aged man didn't think so. He thought that since he was the big boss who paid the money, the Jean Mantang mercenary group should first protect his and his son's safety. However, things didn't go as he wished. His son actually died in this attack, so he couldn't accept this fact. Just as the middle-aged man was about to pounce over and yell at Captain Jean, the middle-aged man suddenly stopped. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his chest as he was sent flying with a kick. He landed heavily on the ground. The other survivors of the caravan were sobbing. When they turned their heads, they saw the middle-aged man being kicked to the ground. Looking up, they saw the little girl who had just saved them staring at the middle-aged man coldly. "He's been captured. Take care of him." After Arbor said this, he turned around and jumped onto Qing Luan's back. He touched Qing Luan's head and whispered, "Let's go." Chapter 1707. Qing Luan flapped its wings and flew into the air. Arbor turned to look at Captain Jean and said indifferently, "If you don't want the remaining people to be wiped out, you should get rid of everything that needs to be dealt with without mercy." After speaking, Arbor sat on Qing Luan and left without looking back. Captain Jean turned to look at the middle-aged man who was trembling all over. His face was deathly pale as he kept muttering, "No, no, no," while retreating step by step. Captain Jean sighed and waved his hand. Two of his teammates darted out from behind him and twisted the middle-aged man's arm. Actually, the attack this time had caused the Jean Mantang mercenary group to lose at least a third of their members. It was a huge blow to the Jean Mantang mercenary group. Originally, their Jean Mantang mercenary group was just a small 2-star mercenary group. As the leader, he only had the strength of a level 15 body cultivator. Once a body cultivator reached level 15, they were basically at their limit. Any higher would only increase their body's resistance to attacks. Unlike mystic cultivators, they could break through the spirit realm and take a step towards becoming a spirit master. The number of mystic cultivators and spirit masters on the 6 prefectures continent was definitely much higher than in the lower star field. However, although the people of the 6 prefectures continent lived in a place filled with spirit energy, this spirit energy was so thin that it was almost negligible. In reality, the only place with dense spirit energy that could speed up cultivation was a spirit realm. However, this kind of treasured land that could only be discovered by chance required one to encounter it. It wasn't as if any random person could find a spirit realm wherever they went. Therefore, when 3 spirit realms were dug out from Brinset Island, it was obvious that the 6 prefectures went crazy over it. The people who lived the most in the 6 prefectures continent were actually still normal people. The number of people on this continent was more than 100 times that of the lower star field Seacombe planet. Relatively speaking, the number of mystic cultivators and spirit masters should naturally be more than 100 times that of Seacombe planet. At first glance, mystic cultivators seemed to be everywhere on the 6 prefectures continent, but in reality, compared to the population of the entire continent, those who could become mystic cultivators were only 1 in 10,000 people. Those who could become mystic cultivators and enter the spirit realm were pitifully few. Arbor bid farewell to the caravan and sat on Qing Luan to return to his academy. The trip back and forth didn't take long. Previously, she had said that she would need a day's time so that she would have more time. In fact, the round trip only took 4 to 6 hours, and they would probably be back at the lava mountains in the afternoon. Master Silver, I seem to smell the scent of rainbow mushrooms. Arbor was slightly taken aback. He raised his hand and patted Chiochio's head. Rainbow mushroom? She had heard of the rainbow mushroom before. The 7-colored mushroom was a very special medicinal ingredient. It was the raw material for making the flying pill. Everyone knew that mystic cultivators above level 7 could fly on their own for a short period of time. But when flying, it would definitely consume his own profound energy. Therefore, no mystic cultivator would foolishly fly from the northern part of the country to the southern part. That was simply impossible. Most of the time, they would choose to use flying profound beasts to fly in their place. But the rainbow mushroom was a very strange thing. If a flight pill made from this material was a high-grade flight pill, its effect could be said to be incomparably good, make up for yesterday's 2 chapters. Chapter 1708. People who took the high-grade flying pill could fly for at least 4 hours unimpeded, and their flying speed was comparable to an eagle's. Arbor couldn't help but stare blankly. Chiuchiu's nose was too sensitive. Where did you smell the 7-colored mushroom? Master, just now, I smelled the 7-colored mushroom in the small bag that the mercenary captain handed you. Oh. Arbor stared blankly. When Captain Jean gave her the small bag, she casually put it in her inner world without checking what it was. At this time, she took the small bag out of her inner world and set up a defensive barrier around her body to block the fierce wind outside. Xiao Mu opened the small food bag that Captain Jean gave her and poured out the contents, spreading them on the hem of her skirt. These were indeed small mushroom-like things. So Captain Jean was right. This was originally a small bag of food, and the amount wasn't much. It was just a small token of his appreciation. To Arbor, such a small bag of mushrooms was really not enough. On her paradise planet, all kinds of vegetables were now thriving, so there was naturally no shortage of mushrooms. Actually, she didn't need these things from him, but it wouldn't be good if she insisted on not accepting Captain Jin's food. Perhaps others would think that they owed her a big favor and feel uneasy all day. So when she saw Captain Jean like this, she reached out to take it in order to make him feel at ease. But she didn't expect that there would be a 7-colored mushroom mixed in with this pile of mushrooms. This 7-colored mushroom was actually a very strange thing. It was called a 7-colored mushroom, but in fact, it didn't emit 7-colored colors. It looked a bit like a shiitake mushroom, gray and dull. It was really hard to find clues mixed in with a small bag of mushrooms. Arbor took out the small 7-colored mushroom and handed it to Chiuchiu. Can this still prolong its life? When the men of the mercenary corps picked mushrooms, they definitely didn't treat them as treasures. They all just twisted and turned to pick them. Master, don't worry. This 7-colored mushroom is still easy to cultivate. It can't be weaker than spirit tea. Just keep it in our paradise planet. Arbor nodded and gave the mushroom to Sapling. This trip confirmed that Tan Fa was closely related to the Clear Sky Gate. In addition, he had also unexpectedly obtained a rainbow mushroom, which could be considered as quite a harvest. Arbor returned to the academy peak. Before he could return to his room, he was stopped by Qi Xianxian, who had heard the news. Jojo, where have you been? Why didn't you bring us along? Qi Xianxian tugged at her sleeve and said unhappily, I was worried about you. I'm fine. Arbor turned around and nodded at her. Go and deal with Tan Fa. Qi Xuanxuan's face was filled with surprise as she cried out, is that the man who pulled the carriage and ran away from the teleportation formation? Arbor nodded. Are you all right then? Qi Xianxian was still worried. She grabbed her and looked her up and down. Seeing that she wasn't injured, she heaved a sigh of relief and lightly punched her. Why are you acting alone for such a big matter? Arbor blinked and shook his head. It's not a big matter. I can handle it myself. That won't do. Don't forget that we're in the same team. Naturally, we have to shoulder the responsibility together. Xianxian is right. Chapter 1709. The little fatty popped out from the small earthen hut next door and told Xiao Mu sternly, Xiao Xiao, it's hard to avoid worrying people when you suddenly ran off on Qinghuan. Don't do this again next time. Yes, yes. No matter what, you have to discuss it with us first. We're teammates in the same boat. Upon hearing this, Xiao Mu nodded seriously and said, okay. Only then did Qi Xianxian smile. Reaching out, she grabbed her little hand and laughed, here, it's a deal. You're not allowed to act alone next time. Arbor nodded obediently. Qi Xianxian tilted her head and smiled. Xiao Qiao, when you left, the two groups that were in a dilemma have already been divided. Other than the three of us, Duan Wuqing is in the same team as us. As for Ma Ta, ha 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 ha. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but laugh loudly when she mentioned Ma Ta's expression. What happened? Arbor was slightly startled and turned to look at Qi Xianxian, who was laughing non-stop. Qi Xianxian's laughter infected little Fatty, who was standing at the side, and he started laughing as well. Ma Ta and big brother Duanmu competed in martial arts. They said that the winner would stay. You know the result. Qi Xianxian laughed loudly. You didn't see it then. After Ma Ta lost, he felt like the sky was falling down. He looked like he was about to cry. Xiao Mu smiled faintly, an extremely faint smile on her lips. Qi Xuanxuan's eyes widened and she suddenly screamed, Jojo. You're smiling. Qi Xianxian suddenly reached out and cupped little Fatty's face, revealing an exaggerated expression. Am I smiling? Let me see, let me see. Little Fatty hurried forward and asked anxiously. From what he remembered, this little guy who had been expressionless since the first time they met seemed to have never smiled. Xiao Mu sighed softly as she looked at their exaggerated appearances in exasperation. Little did they know that behind them, Duan Wuqing was looking at the three of them chatting and laughing under the setting sun. He was in a daze. The sun was setting. Under the illumination of the red sun, the entire lava mountain range was enveloped in a sea of red. They couldn't tell if it was the heat emitting from the lava mountain range or the illumination from the setting sun. Duan Wuqing only felt that the smile of the girl in front of him was as if the fog had dissipated. It was also as if the spring breeze had brushed past the willows and melted the snow. Her appearance was extremely refined. In a trance, he seemed to see a faint shadow slowly walking over from the other side of the road. The shadow smiled at him and called faintly, Brother Qing. Life at Arbor's top academy began. Every day was spent in a state of chaos. The instructors of the 5 departments took turns. Don't think that he only had to face one type of spirit faculty instructor. In fact, even if it was a wood spirit faculty instructor, all the students had to be present when he was teaching Duan Wuqing. Just like what the instructor said, even if you can't control this type of spiritual power, you have to understand it, or even conquer it. You have to grasp its weakness so that in the future, you can quickly find the opponent's weakness and defeat it in one blow. Early in the morning, on the spacious arena of the Lava Mountain Range's Academy peak, Xiao Mu was wearing a light wood-colored short-sleeved shirt, and she had braided her long hair behind her head. He stretched out his hand and a long transparent water spirit whip appeared. Chapter 17:10. Senior Brother Lu, please guide me. Arbor was fully focused when facing a level 2 spiritual master with a level 7 earth spirit. Junior Sister Qiao, please. The other party cupped his fists in greeting and nodded slightly. 2 figures flitted into the arena at an amazing speed. Once they attacked, spirit energy surged and the wind howled. Ma Ta, who was squatting on the side watching the 2 fight, hugged his head and cried out pitifully, it's over, it's over, it's over, we're going to lose again. We're going to lose again. We're going to lose our points again. Hua Tao couldn't help but ask, why do you always lower your own prestige for others' sake? I'm not trying to lower my prestige. It's you, Senior Brother Hua Tao. When you fought with Junior Sister Qiao on the first day, didn't you get thrown out of the circle with one hand and couldn't even withstand a single move? Senior brother Lu's cultivation is about the same as yours. Do you think he can win? Shut up. Hua Tao glared fiercely at Ma Ta. Hey, no one will think you're a mute if you don't open your mouth. Besides, I merely underestimated my opponent that day. Can you not keep bringing that up? That day, he didn't even manage to withstand a single move from the little girl before being thrown out of the circle. This was practically a lifetime of black material. Senior brother, I don't want to talk about it either. But look, senior brother Lu only has the strength to defend himself. Sai, junior sister Qiao is very savage. Shoo shoo shoo. Hua Tao kicked him. Shut up. Even if we lose this round, there are still 3 more rounds. Even if we take a step back and say that Duanmu Qin wins, the other 2 brats absolutely aren't our match. No matter how you think about it, it's still a draw. What's the rush? A draw is even worse. Ma Ta hugged his head and wailed. With his familiarity with the mentors' personalities, they absolutely wouldn't let them fight so easily. In the arena, the little girl's water spirit whip moved and lashed out one move after another at senior brother Lu. Senior brother Lu and the mentors were all astonished. The little girl was merely a level 15 mystic cultivator who had yet to break through to the spiritual realm. It was already very shocking that she could barely use the power of the water spirit. But now, her spirit energy was actually endless. He clearly did not have a spiritual pulse, so how could his spiritual energy be stronger than his? Senior martial brother Lu somersaulted into the air and landed on a nearby rock. He cupped his fists and smiled. Junior martial sister Qiao, senior martial brother has lost. Everyone focused their eyes and saw a faint shadow of a whip on senior brother Lu's chest. It was caused by the water spirit whip. Ma Ta sighed. What should we do? Looks like it's really going to be a draw. He had a very bad premonition. After a draw, they would definitely suffer. The most pitiful thing was that he didn't know what the mentors would do to them. Jojo is the best. Qi Xianxian smiled and jumped up. She ran forward and held on to Arbor's arm. She smiled and said, Jojo, I knew you would win. Next match, Group 2 Ko Hongwen vs Group 1 Jiang Shaoxin. The little fatty immediately took out the double-headed hammer from his conscious and jumped onto the arena. He hollered, Senior brother Jiang, come. Jiang Shaoxin narrowed his eyes, and a black spear appeared in his hand. Spiritual energy floated around the spear, indicating that it was a spirit weapon. Junior martial brother Ko, be careful. The little fatty shouted. His left foot stomped hard on the ground. His entire body was like a small cannon as he pounced toward senior brother Jiang Shaoxin in front of him. Chapter 1711. Qi Xianxian couldn't help but raise her hand to cover her face as she whispered to Arbor, every time I see little fatty fighting, I always feel like, there's a ball flying around in front of my eyes. Arbor pursed her lips and looked at the 2 people in the arena. Little fatty was naturally not this senior brother who had already broken through to the spiritual realm. However, it was very obvious that the other party had not used his full strength, so little fatty could still withstand a few more blows from him. As time went by, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. It was noon, and the sun hung high above everyone's heads. The scorching heat of the lava mountain range not only made the 2 people in the arena sweat profusely. Even the spectators standing at the side felt faint beads of sweat on their foreheads, and their bodies were unbearably hot. With a wave of Qiao Mu's small hand, she placed the ice ball that had taken shape into a jade box with a colored glass cover and hugged it in her arms. She immediately felt her small hands become much cooler. Startled, Qi Xianxian hurriedly turned to look at her, and her eyes lit up. An ice box. Do you want it? Emichem. Arbor casually made another one for Qi Xianxian and let her hug it in her arms. Previously, when she made an ice ball and exposed it to the air, it was instantly melted by the heat of the mountain range. Now that she put the ice ball into the jade box, it could naturally maintain the coolness for a certain period of time. For the past 2 nights, Arbor had placed an ice box in each of the 4 corners of her earthen house to cool down. Otherwise, how could she sleep from the heat? Sapling had already invited her to sleep on Paradise Planet many times. But when she thought about it, she was not that delicate. Back then, she lacked water and food, and her body was as dirty as a mud monkey. Could she really not bear this small burning pain now? She naturally didn't want to go to Paradise Planet. Besides, she had already promised her teammates that they would suffer together and enjoy together. Of course, she couldn't be so disloyal. Qi Xianxian hugged the icebox and looked at the arena. Sigh, looks like it's going to be a draw again today. Speaking of which, it was normal for her and Little Fatty to be at the Mystic Realm, but Jojo was clearly not normal. A level 15 Mystic Cultivator was able to defeat a level 2 Spiritualist in a duel, and it could be seen that she had yet to use her full strength. This kind of combat ability simply didn't seem like the strength a normal Mystic Cultivator should have. The 4 matches lasted from day till evening, and finally ended. Arbor didn't feel anything, but the Little Fatty was so hungry that his stomach was rumbling. His chest was sticking to his back, and the sound of his stomach rumbling was heard by everyone present. The short mentor stepped forward with a wretched smile and said to the Arbor crowd, "Kids, you must be hungry." The Little Fatty shuddered for no reason. "I'm sorry to inform you that after 3 days of competition, the results of Group 1 and Group 2 are 0. Is that fucking expression of regret?" This was an expression that deserved a beating. Qi Xianxian cursed in her heart. Of course, Qi Xianxian wasn't the only one who was scolding. In fact, everyone was hungry and tired. Their bodies were so tired that they wanted to go back to their rooms to rest. Who would want to stay here and continue listening to the little tutor's nonsense? You guys can't behave like this. The little tutor shook his head and grinned. After our 5 spiritualist faculty tutors discussed it, we unanimously decided. Everyone held their breaths and waited for the bad news to arrive. "I'll bring you guys to have a big meal." Huh. Chapter 17:12. Who knew what the instructors were thinking? The students, who thought that they would definitely be scammed again, had strange expressions on their faces when they found themselves in a small tavern in Anka City. "Do you think the instructors will be so kind?" Little Fatty asked hesitantly. "Are we going to starve to death if we don't eat?" Qi Xianxian snapped. "We'll only have the energy to continue training and fighting when we're full." "That's true." Little Fatty calmed himself down and nodded. He turned his head to look at the plate of meat buns that was being served. His stomach, which was so hungry that it was bulging, immediately made a series of noises. "Eat." Xiao Mu casually picked up a bun and handed it to him. "Thank you, Jojo." Little Fatty chuckled and took the bun. He opened his mouth and was about to take a bite. Suddenly, Mata jumped up in shock. "Wait." Little Fatty's mouth was agape. It was as if his acupoints had been hit. He stared blankly at Mata, who had suddenly attacked him. "Did you guys notice? The atmosphere here is quite strange." Everyone's gazes followed Mata's words and wandered around the tavern. Now that he took a look, it was indeed true. There were 5 to 6 tables in the tavern. Everyone was dressed in plain clothes and had weapons by their side. They were eyeing the 8 people at the table with hostility. Little Fatty held his meat bun tightly with both hands and ate it in big bites. However, his eyes were vigilant as he looked at the people at the other tables. Qi Xianxian turned her head and saw the waiter running over with a tray in his hands. There were 8 bowls of noodles on the tray, but the waiter walked as if he was walking on flat ground. He brought the noodles to them effortlessly. Duanmu Qing nodded slightly and took the bowl of noodles from the waiter. He glanced at the waiter and asked, "Where are we?" After the instructors sent them here, they disappeared one after another. If they still didn't know that they had been tricked by these unreliable instructors, then they would be really stupid. The waiter stopped in his tracks and grinned at Duan Muqing. "Don't you know, my friends? Aren't you here to sign up for the underground arena tournament?" "What?" The 8 of them were all stunned, their eyes filled with confusion. "What are you pretending for? Why would an ordinary person come to such a remote tavern to eat noodles? He's obviously here for the bounty." "That's right. Since you're here, stop pretending." The people at the tables next to them began to verbally attack them. Many pairs of eyes were looking at them with unfriendly gazes. Underground arena tournament. What was that? Duan Muqing glanced at the waiter and asked, "We have indeed never heard of the underground battle arena tournament." "What a joke. They were just here to eat a bowl of noodles, fill their stomachs, and leave. Of course, if the instructors wanted to screw them over, that would be a different story." "Who is young Master Duanmu?" A little beggar ran in with a smile, holding a letter in his hand. Duan Muqing was stunned and nodded at him. "I am. Young Master Duanmu, someone gave this to you." The little beggar ran over with a smile and handed the letter to Duan Muqing. He shook his body shyly. "The person who delivered the letter said that as long as I hand the letter to young Master Duanmu, young Master will reward me." Chapter 1713. Fuck, this is definitely something that the mentors would do. Duan Muqing smiled good-naturedly at the little beggar. He reached into his pocket and took out a money pouch. Then, he took out 2 spirit coins and handed them to the little beggar. The expressions of the people at the other tables changed instantly. Fuck. Where did this rich guy come from? How could he flaunt his wealth like this? His life was so poor, but he was rewarded with 2 spirit coins for delivering a letter. Which family's young master was so generous? Were they really here to participate in the underground arena tournament? If not, why were they here? If that was the case, with this young master's extravagant family background, why would they need to fight so hard for 1,000 spirit coins? Duan Muqing opened the letter and skimmed through it. After a short while, he sighed softly and handed the letter to Arbor and the others. "Take a look." It was a letter from the mentors. The letter read, "Children, all of our mentors have made a unanimous decision. We've decided to let you live in Anka City for the next 30 days. Within 30 days, your 2 groups must have an average of more than 1,000 points in the underground arena. Your ranking must be within the top 50 on average. Then, the mentors will come and take you home. Otherwise, don't blame the mentors for cheating you. You can continue to play in the underground arena." The signature was, "Love to you, Mentor Wei Wei. I fucking love your ancestors." Arbor could not help but curse in her heart. No wonder she regretted it the second day after entering this academy. It was truly the misfortune of 3 lifetimes to have encountered such an unreliable academy and such a deceptive group of mentors. The 8 of them looked at each other with strange expressions on their faces. Hey, hey, hey. Look, look. There's a small note at the back of the letter. It says that you can't summon your mystic beasts in the first 28 days of the tournament. What does that mean? The little fatty exclaimed with a dazed expression. It means that you can't use your god-level tortoise. Qi Xian pursed her lips in annoyance. How can you cheat us like this? Is it too late for us to leave the academy? If you're not afraid of being hunted down by the Vice Academy Master, then take off your clothes, Senior Brother Lu said indifferently with tea in his hands. I'll strip your sister. Qi Xian sat down on the stool dejectedly. The delicious noodles in front of her didn't taste that good anymore. Wait, there's a small note here. It was written that in the first 28 days, he was not allowed to use any supplementary items, including talismans, medicines, hidden weapons, or any artifact above the level of a divine artifact. What the fuck, then what else can he use? Mata complained. Also, who the fuck has a divine artifact? Arbor scratched his head silently and turned his face to the side. What do you mean by the first 28 days? Let me ask you. Just now, the instructor said that we would be staying here for a few days. 30 days. Duanmu Qin gave a clear answer. Everyone's lips twitched when they heard this. You motherfucker told us not to use any support for 28 days, and that's only 30 days in total. For 28 days, he had to resist. In the remaining 2 days, even if he fought 30 matches, it would be impossible for him to catch up. Then what else can we use? Use the big head. Use your big head to fight others. Use your brains and see how you can use your true strength to win. Everyone looked up at the sky, speechless. Chapter 17:14. Oh. It's written here that you can use spirit weapons. You can even fight as a team. Jojo, what should we do? Our divine beasts can't be used. Qi Xianxian turned to Arbor with a bitter expression. Arbor was the one who was truly bitter. He had a feeling that this line of small words was definitely directed at him. She couldn't use divine beasts, talismans, poisons, hidden weapons, and even divine weapons. If it wasn't directed at her, why would she not be able to use this and that? She was so angry. Just like what little fatty said, what else could she use? Could it be that she could only use her big head to fight with others? Second brother, how can we enter the underground battle arena? The second brother turned around and grinned at them. As long as you pay enough spirit coins and get a VIP card for the underground battle arena, you can enter. How much? Qi Xianxian and Little Fatty asked in unison. 100 spirit coins per person. What? Qi Xianxian, Little Fatty, Mata, Hua Tao, and the others all had terrified expressions on their faces. They glared at little second brother as if they wanted to swallow him whole. This kid was asking for too much, wasn't he? Could it be that Duanmu Qing's display of wealth had caused this fellow to have evil thoughts? Their suspicions were not wrong at all. The second brother who delivered the noodles really had the idea of getting rich because of Duanmu Qing's display of wealth. Anyway, young Master Duanmu was rich and didn't care about the entrance fee. Arbor glanced at the second brother coldly. Are you tired of living? Everyone was speechless. That's right. Are you tired of living? Huh? You dare to cheat me? Qi Xianxian kicked one of the long stools, and it instantly turned into sawdust. The waiter was shocked, but on the surface, he still smiled faintly at Qi Xianxian. Ladies and gentlemen, this little one is not speaking nonsense. The VIP card for the underground battle arena does indeed cost 100 spirit coins per person. If you can't pay the fee, of course you can't go in. Arbor sneered and glanced at him. His figure moved and he floated in front of the waiter. She stretched out her hand and her cold fingers immediately grabbed the waiter's neck. With a light pinch, there was a slight cracking sound, as if the waiter's neck would break in her hands in a matter of minutes. The waiter's expression changed in shock. His mouth opened and his face flushed red, but he still couldn't help but stubbornly say, Auntie, you have to think carefully. This is the largest Qianluo underground arena in Anka City. Offending the master of our 1,000 Luo arena is of no benefit to a little girl like you. Oh. Arbor glanced at him indifferently. You're just a waiter. How can you have so much power? Would the owner of your underground fighting arena be so angry for you? Little second brother's face turned red when he heard that. Of course, he knew that he didn't have that much power. However, it was more important to scare the young lady in front of him and get her to release him. However, how could Xiao Mu be intimidated by him? How much is the entrance fee? 10 spirit coins. How much? Xiao Mu shouted coldly and increased the force in her hand, scaring the waiter to death. Don't want money, don't want money. Arbor pushed him back forcefully and stretched out her hand. Give it to me. Today ended. Chapter 17:15. The waiter trembled as he took out 8 jade tokens and distributed them to the 8 of them. The people at the nearby tables were all a little stunned by what they saw. What was going on? There were actually people who dared to cause trouble at the entrance of Qian Luo's underground battle arena. These immature brats and maidservants were really bold. Did they not know how powerful Qian Luo's underground battle arena was in Shantian Prefecture? So what if they were allowed to enter the battle arena for free? When the time came, it would be like catching a turtle in a jar. In Qian Luo's underground battle arena, wouldn't they have to obediently fork out money to buy a VIP token? A trace of indignation flashed across the waiter's eyes, but he still respectfully said to the crowd, "Everyone, please follow me." Arbor's group of 8 followed the waiter to the back of the tavern. The waiter stepped forward and pushed open a mud wall, revealing a narrow passageway behind. "Everyone, please." The waiter lowered his eyes, hiding the cold smile in his eyes. So what if that lady had some tricks up her sleeve? He had already informed the manager of the battle arena. Once they entered, they would be in for a good time. Arbor naturally did not miss the hatred in the waiter's eyes. However, she did not care. A small battle arena's gatekeeper dared to cheat her, Arbor. Who gave him the guts? Although she was not someone who cared about the 100 spirit coins, she was unhappy that someone dared to cheat her of her money. Why didn't he go out and ask around? Was her darling Qiao's money so easy to cheat? Duanmu Qing and the rest bent slightly and passed through the narrow door. They were the first to enter the underground battle arena's passageway. This passageway could only allow one person to pass through. The 8 of them entered in a single file, with the little fatty at the back. Following that, many other people entered. They should be people from other tables in the tavern who had already paid for their tickets. The 8 of them followed the long passageway to the end and stepped onto a round platform carved with a fierce tiger. They saw a row of talismans drawn around the platform. It should be a small talisman array. What talisman array is this? Is it a transportation talisman array? Qi Xian asked Arbor softly. No. Arbor shook her head indifferently. It's a safety talisman array. Oh. Qi Xian replied. At the end of the tunnel came the sound of a mechanism being pulled. Her feet suddenly moved, and she felt as if she was falling. She couldn't help but reach out and grab Arbor's little hand. Xiao Mu grasped her arm in return and patted it soothingly, indicating for her not to be nervous. The mechanisms and formations of the underground battle arena were set up very exquisitely. In just a short moment, the round platform beneath their feet fell down at a uniform speed until it embedded itself into a jade platform. Only then did it come to a complete stop. Qi Xian heaved a sigh of relief. She raised her head and saw many battle arena guards swarming in from all directions, surrounding them. On the platform, there were some idlers at other tables in the tavern. Seeing this, they hurriedly raised their hands and exclaimed, "We're not together. We're not together. Yes, we paid for it." The guards of the arena were ready for battle. They surrounded Arbor and the others with swords and sabers in their hands. Every one of them looked as if they were facing a great enemy. "Why are you all crowding around here?" An indifferent voice traveled from behind the crowd to everyone's ears. "Young master is here. Young master. Young master." The guards of the battle arena all turned around and respectfully bowed to the person who had arrived. Chapter 17:16. The crowd parted to the sides like a tide. A person wearing a dark purple robe with golden sleeves walked over like a flower parting a willow. He was like jade, his hair was long, and his eyes were seductive. His elegant features originally contained a distant and cold smile, but when he met Xiao Mu's eyes, he was slightly startled. The icy expression on his face instantly disappeared, and he revealed a smile that was as scorching as the sun. Jojo. That person swept his sleeves and walked quickly to Arbor's side. He looked at her with a smile and said, "What a surprise to meet you here. Tell me, isn't this called fate brings us together 1,000 miles apart?" Arbor looked at the man in front of her expressionlessly. She took a step back without leaving a trace, widening the distance between them. "Who are you?" "Jojo, I'm sad to hear you say that." The man looked at her pitifully, with a tearful expression. He reached out and tore open his lapel. "Look, the mark you left on me hasn't been erased. How could you forget about me? I'm so sad, Jojo, you trampled on my sincerity, it really hurts." Arbor's cold gaze fell on the shallow sword mark below his collarbone. That was the wound she had caused with her own hands. "You're Ding Ting Ding. This should be Ding Ting Ding's true appearance." She already couldn't remember how many times he had changed his appearance. One moment he was the snake beauty, the next he pretended to be the kid with the iron pot, and the next he pretended to be her mother to deceive her and hurt her mother. Would such a person really have sincerity? What kind of bullshit sincerity could such a playboy who didn't know fatigue have? "So, don't joke around." Arbor looked at him coldly. There was no fluctuation in her gaze, as if she was looking at a cold corpse. There was no warmth in her eyes. "Jojo, why are you looking at me like that?" The man covered his heart with one hand and pretended to be sad. "It's so uncomfortable. Jojo is looking at me like I'm a dead man. Does he really want me to die? If I say hope, will you go and die?" Xiao Mu's callous voice instantly caused everyone's breathing to stop. Cult Master Ding's gaze fell on the little girl's face, which was as cold as snow. For a long time, he couldn't make a sound. "Jojo, you've really forgotten everything. You don't remember anything, right?" Cult Master Ding sighed softly. Her pair of beautiful eyes that were brimming with vigor gradually lost their light and shadow, leaving behind only darkness. Arbor couldn't help but stare at him with a frown. Of course, she knew now that she had spent a day with him when she was afflicted with the speed cultivation talisman. 2 days. He couldn't remember it at all. However, did he need to look at her with such a sad expression? They weren't familiar with each other in the first place, so why pretend to be familiar with each other? Cult Master Ding's sorrowful mood came and went quickly. His eyes instantly glowed with vigor again. That moment of sadness was so quick that it was almost unnoticeable. Arbor naturally didn't notice it. The only person present who noticed the change in his mood was probably Duan Muqin. Duan Muqin didn't know why he felt that Jojo's cold expression right now was abnormally scary. That cold expression of, "You're clearly just a stranger. Why do you have to pretend to be familiar with me and pester me?" made him unconsciously feel a little flustered in his heart. "Jojo, are you also here to participate in the championship?" "Can't I?" Arbor glanced at him coldly. You can. Of course you can." Chapter 17:17. Ding Yun nodded repeatedly and stepped forward with a smile. "How about I take you to register?" Arbor deliberately sized him up. "Is this your territory?" Cult Master Ding nodded with a grin. "Jojo, do you think I'm very rich?" Even though Anka City was very far away from the Shantian Prefecture continent, the fact that this person was able to open a sizable underground fighting arena in Anka City showed that he was doing quite well in the Shantian Prefecture. Compared to small fries like Arbor, who had just ascended to the Shantian Prefecture, he had cultivated a considerable force. Xiao Mu harumphed and couldn't be bothered with him. As Cult Master Ding walked forward, her bright eyes curiously scanned the area. Not only was the place dazzling with gold and jade, but it was also decorated with long tables. How did this look like an underground arena at all? This was clearly an underground casino. In front of every gambling table, there were many people surrounding it. They were playing dice, horse riding, cricket fighting, and all kinds of gambling methods were available. Seeing the confusion in her eyes, Cult Master Ding smiled and said, "The underground arena is still below. Follow me." Ding Yun led the group onto the passage platform. After everyone stood firmly, he reached out and pulled the mechanism. After a series of creaking sounds, Arbor and the others went down another level. This level was where the real underground arena was. As soon as the platform landed, Arbor, Qi Xian, and the others heard thunderous roars in their ears. They looked up and saw a slightly dark passage in front of them that led to about 9 levels of stairs. In front of the seating area was a circle of silver fences. The seats spiraled upward and could accommodate thousands of spectators. As for the center, it was naturally a large, circular arena. At this moment, 2 people were fighting with their lives on the arena. The spectators around them cheered as if the competition had reached the most critical moment. Arbor looked up at Ding Yun. "Follow me." Ding Yun led the group to the service area. When the 2 young ladies in charge of registration saw that Ding Yun had personally brought people over, they hurriedly stood up and respectfully bowed to Ding Yun. "Young master." Ding Yun nodded indifferently. Before he said anything, Arbor walked up to them and said, "Registration." The 2 girls were slightly stunned. They looked up at young Master Ding subconsciously and murmured, "Are you here to participate in the underground arena tournament?" Arbor nodded. The underground arena tournament lasts for a month. Once you participate, you'll have to fight every day. The tournament is arranged for you by our arena through public drawing. The participants have no choice but to accept the arrangement. If you're unlucky, you may have to fight 3 or 4 matches in a row. If you're lucky, you may only fight 1 match per day. Everyone, do you understand the rules of the competition? Are you ready to participate? Judging from the girl's appearance, she was only 14 or 15 years old. She was a little too young, wasn't she? However, they were brought here by young master himself. It seemed like they were young master's friends. If they were injured, young master might take his anger out on them. Therefore, the young lady had to explain the rules of the tournament to Arbor and the others. Although the prize money for this underground arena tournament was generous, it was not easy to earn. Upon hearing this, Xiao Mu nodded. "Report it." To put it bluntly, it was just bad luck. They could only accept the fate of fighting one after another. What was so bad about that? Don't blame your bad luck if you're unlucky. Chapter 17-18. The 2 young ladies at the registration counter saw that they were all indifferent, so they nodded and said, "The competition will be based on points. 1 point will be awarded for every win, 1 point will be deducted for every loss, and no points will be awarded for draws. Do you understand?" One of the ladies at the registration counter looked at Arbor and the others. "What?" Mata, who was in the team, almost jumped up. "Only 1 point. Then why did the instructors ask for so much and ask for an average of 1,000 points? To get 1,000 points in 1 month, even if they won every single match, they would still have to go through 1,000 matches. 1,000 matches in 30 days, wouldn't they have to fight 33 matches a day on average? What the instructors were doing, was it something that humans could do? Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Their expressions were extremely unsightly. On the other hand, Arbor remained expressionless as he looked at the lady at the registration counter. "Is there any way to earn points faster?" "Yes." That miss gave Xiao Mu a word with absolute certainty. Then, she said excitedly, "You can participate in the team competition. If you win the team competition, you can get double the points. Double the points is just 2 points. Little Fatty yelled at her in annoyance. "Fuck. Even if we get double the points, if we can win every single match, we would still have to fight 12 matches a day. Why don't you just go and die? Seeing her companion's agitation, Xiao Mu involuntarily twitched her mouth. She coughed lightly and looked at the stunned miss, asking, "Is there a faster way?" "Yes." The lady nodded again. "If you are very confident in your own abilities, you can fight to be the champion of the arena. If you succeed in defending the arena, you will get 1 point for the first match, 2 points for the second and third matches, and 5 points for each match from the 4th to the 10th. Everyone wanted to slap her to death. Couldn't she speak properly? Oh, your grandpa. Starting from the 11th match, you will get 10 points for every match you defend. If you succeed in defending the arena, you'll get an additional 20 points. As long as you're willing to fight, and defend the arena, it's possible for you to get more than 100 points a day." Arbor pondered for a moment, then looked up at the woman and asked, "Is it okay if the 8 of us sign up for the team competition?" The girl at the registration point shook her head vigorously. "No, each group can't have more than 5 people." "Then let's split into 2 groups to register," Arbor said calmly. He immediately left Ma Ta's group and walked over to Duan Muqing and little fatty Qi Xianxian. "We'll sign up for the team competition." "All right." The 3 of them replied in unison. "Let's fight 2 rounds first." Arbor said, "When the time comes, I'll participate in the ring defense. In addition to the normal team competition, I'll also be able to earn more points. In this way, we'll be able to accumulate 1,000 points in about half a month and charge into the top 50. Hee hee. Another girl at the registration point couldn't help but laugh. "Do you think it's so easy to defend the arena? How many people defended the arena until they were half dead? Every time, they would be beaten up by a sea of people and thrown out of the arena. This wasn't something to joke about." Young Master Ding saw this and hurriedly said, "Jojo, you want points? That's easy, I. Scram." Chapter 17-19. Young Sir Ding was instantly aggrieved, and he gazed pitifully at Xiao Mu. "You know what I'm going to say? If you want to cheat for me, then give me 1,000 points." Xiao Mu glared irritably at Ding Yun. Was this guy a pig? If she could cheat, why would she be here talking nonsense with them? Did she need him to do her a favor and give her these points? She would have held a knife to his neck and forced him to give her the points. Humph. Just now, senior brother Lu had said that although the mentors didn't seem to be present, they might be hiding in the dense audience seats, waiting to watch them perform and calculate their scores. If they dared to cheat, those idiotic instructors would definitely clear all their points to 0. Let them continue to fight in this underground arena. How depressing. Arbor sighed and turned to the girl in charge of registration. "Go ahead." Compared to Arbor's team of 4, Mata felt even more dejected. He wanted to tell Jojo that they could be in one group. Anyway, the number of people in this team battle could be 5. But haha. The way senior brother Lu and the other 2 looked at him was as if they were saying that if he dared to speak such nonsense, they would dare to kill him on the spot, dig a hole, and bury him. Sigh, he had no choice but to give in under the pressure. But as a teammate, although he was in senior brother Lu's team, his heart was with Arbor's Duan Muqing. Hua Tao patted Mata's shoulder with one hand and gave him a sinister smile. "Little Mata, don't get the wrong idea. You have to know that the instructor's letter said that the average score of each group should be above 1,000 points and be ranked in the top 50. This means that the instructor's original intention was for us to split into groups. If you dare to change our team of 4 into a team of 3, do you think the instructors will dare to cancel our results?" Mata shuddered. The instructors would definitely dare to cancel. The ladies at the registration area took out a simple contract for them to sign. The contract was simple. It was a life and death contract. It stated that they were willing to participate in this competition and that their life and death had nothing to do with the Qianluo underground arena. This meant that he was trying to distance himself from the underground fighting arena. After all, there would definitely be more than 1 or 2 contestants who would die in this battle arena tournament. Fearing that the family members of the deceased would come knocking on their door, the arena made arrangements in advance. Arbor and the others calmly signed the life and death contract, and then they were led to the preparation area. Other than those who were fighting in the arena, the rest of the contestants also had designated areas for them to rest. The contestants' area could accommodate about 1,000 people. When Arbor and the others arrived, there were already many fully armed people sitting there. Under Ding Yun's lead, the 8 people from Arbor walked into the competition area, immediately attracting the attention of many people. When they saw clearly that the one leading the group was a 14 or 15-year-old little girl, they couldn't help but be stunned. Then 2 rough men started to tease her in an unclear manner. "Yo, a little girl who's still wet behind the ears dares to come to our battle arena to challenge. TSK, look at those thin arms and legs, TSK, it's not even as thick as my thigh." Arbor's cold gaze shot like a sharp sword towards the burly man who was teasing her. He raised his hand and there was something like a washboard in his hand. Chapter 17:20. Ding Yun saw everything clearly from the side, and the corners of his eyes twitched. This really was a washboard. Jojo carried a washboard with her everywhere, so she must have made Prince Emo kneel as punishment at any time. Thinking of this, a smile appeared on young Master Ding's face. Serves him right, that stinky man should kneel to death. He actually abducted Jojo when she was unprepared, how shameful. Shameless. Arbor's washboard was actually a tribute from De Yuan. Oh, no, it was one of the items in the pile of junk that De Yuan had given him in the Xuanji mystic realm. Don't look down on this washboard, it was indeed a spiritual weapon. It was just shaped like a washboard. In reality, Xiao Mu felt that this spiritual weapon master probably wanted to forge this washboard into something like a ferrule at the beginning. It was just that it was a bit too wide and couldn't be changed back, so its image was a bit tragic. At this moment, Xiao Mu was carrying this washboard. Probably like a sudden clap of thunder, she abruptly charged toward the man who had spoken to tease her. Without any explanation, she hit the back of his head. Everyone only heard a loud smack, followed by a thud, and that man fell to the ground with a dazed expression. He watched helplessly as the little girl ran over angrily and hit him on the head with the washboard twice, directly hitting him until his eyes rolled back and he fainted. His last reaction was probably, where did this savage come from? He was just joking around a little. You're the one with skinny arms and legs. After Arbor beat him down, he glared at the other 2 men. What? You're not convinced? Cough. The 2 men almost choked on their own saliva, and hurriedly waved their hands in denial. Then, they slipped away like a wisp of smoke. When the other contestants saw this scene, although they felt that the little girl's move was a little funny, everyone was still secretly shocked. After all, this little girl used something like a washboard to knock out a 15-level body cultivator. This nimble technique really made people a little stunned. Everyone in this area would become his opponent in the future. Many people were silently observing and comparing in their hearts. They realized that if they were the burly man, perhaps they wouldn't have been able to avoid the little girl's seemingly ordinary head slams. Cough. Qi Xian coughed dryly in all seriousness and walked up to lead Xiao Mu, who was hugging the washboard, back to an empty seat on the side. In the middle of the arena, a pair of middle-aged men were currently engaged in a bloody battle. One of the middle-aged men had the word arena hanging on his chest. He was probably the arena master. Arbor narrowed his eyes and lowered his head to look at his chest. He felt that if he were to wear a challenge sign on his chest, Qi Xian and the others would probably laugh at him for a year. The arena master was chased down by someone. He shouted himself hoarse as he pounded the ground with all his might. However, He still could not endure the exhaustion of his body and fell heavily to the ground. A woman beside him sighed sweetly. Sigh, what a pity. He had already defended until the 10th round and could have asked for a rest. It's a pity that no one can defend the 10th round. Arbor turned to look at that woman and raised his hand to tug at Qi Xuanxuan's sleeve. Chapter 1721. Qi Xianxian hurriedly asked, Miss, how long can you rest after winning 10 rounds? About an hour. That young lady replied and nodded at Xiao Mu and the others with an amiable attitude. Qi Xianxian didn't know if the other contestants were intimidated by Jojo's washboard, so no one dared to come up and cause trouble for them. But this was good too, they could watch other people's matches in peace. Xiao Mu turned to look at young Sir Ding, who was standing beside her, and questioned with creased brows, Are you very idle? Why don't you go do your own things? Why did he keep following her? She wouldn't give him candy if he followed her. Young Master Ding smiled and said, The matter of the Colosseum tournament is almost done. From now on, I will be very leisurely every day. Why don't I accompany Qiao Qiao to watch the tournament? Arbor snorted and turned her head away without saying a word. Hearing that, young Master Ding couldn't help but sigh. Jojo, I'm actually not as annoying as you think. Arbor pursed her lips and ignored him. She looked up at the center of the arena at the back, where there was a large crystal stone screen. There was a table next to the crystal screen, and several staff members of the underground arena were busy drawing lots to register the names of the participants and calculating the scores. After drawing lots, 2 employees of the arena would announce the names on the crystal stone screen at the back. The scores would be recorded under each person's name after the match. To prevent any mistakes, the arena specially arranged 3 to 4 people to check the scores. In order to ensure the fairness of this tournament, young Master Ding had put in a lot of effort and thought. Arbor turned to look at Ding Yun and saw him looking at her with a smile. Young Master Ding looked at her and said with a smile, Jojo, let's make up, okay? Look, you stabbed me, but I didn't settle the score with you. Let's just forget about me pretending to be your mother, okay? I've also received the punishment I deserved. What punishment do you have? Arbor didn't believe him. He glanced at him and said, You're still pretending to be my lotus. This made her angry, and she was almost deceived by this person. From the moment this person came into contact with her as a snake beauty, she did not have a good impression of him. She only felt that the man in front of her was slippery, which really made her angry. Young Master Ding looked at her with a pure and innocent expression like a little white rabbit and said, Qiao Qiao, tell me. Whatever compensation you want, just tell me. Do you think that ceding land to Jojo would be enough? Arbor glanced at him and snorted. I have money. Yes, yes, Jojo is rich. Qi Xianxian nodded her head in agreement, supporting her good friend. Jojo was the richest person she had ever met. He was so rich that he could kill you with a pile of talismans and pills at any time. If Arbor could hear what Qi Xianxian was thinking, he would definitely roll his eyes at her. How was she rich? She only knew how to make medicine and talismans. Compared to other people, yes, she did have a few more ways to make a living. What do you think of my 1,000 luo arena? Young Master Ding suddenly pointed. Everyone was slightly taken aback. Jojo, can I give it to you? No. Arbor rejected flatly. Why would she accept benefits from an outsider for no reason? They were not close. Chapter 1722. She had plenty of things like manors and shops on Seacombe planet. How could these earthly things be more useful than her paradise planet? Jojo showed a disdainful expression, instantly making young Master Ding gloomy. Jojo, what should we do when we fight later? That instructor had tricked all of them. She was clearly targeting Jojo. She said they couldn't use poison, talismans, divine artifacts, and holy beasts. Fuck. They couldn't freaking use any of these and had them fight with their own abilities. Others wouldn't be so foolish as to talk about morality with them and would naturally summon their mystic beasts to fight. At that time, they would definitely be facing a team of 4 people and 4 beasts. If they were even more unlucky, it might even be 5 people and 5 beasts. Ah, Jojo, your instructor is actually so unreasonable. Young Master Ding hastily interrupted. What are you staying in this kind of academy for? Jojo, I'll introduce you to a good academy. Arbor waved her small hand and expressionlessly said, what's there to be afraid of? Everyone, Take out his letter. Arbor poked Qi Xianxian. Qi Xianxian hastily took out the letter that she had fiercely crumpled into a crumpled state from her pocket. Arbor opened the letter and pointed it out to them word by word. What's written here? 7 heads, along with young Master Ding, stretched over and read in unison, can't summon mystic beasts, can't use any assistance. All assistants, including pills, talismans, and divine artifacts, can't be used. Arbor expressionlessly reached out and piled a handful of water bags on her knees. She didn't need to take medicine, but she could drink tea, right? These cheating instructors would never have thought that Arbor had a type of spiritual tea that could replenish the spiritual and mystic energy lost in the body at any time. Qi Xianxian, Ma Ta, and the others' eyes lit up. They didn't need Arbor to say anything at all as they each took a water bag and held it to their chest like it was a treasure, beaming with joy as they nodded. On the other hand, Hua Tao, Jiang Shaoxin, and Lu Yu, who didn't know what was going on, looked at each other in confusion before turning to Arbor. Arbor didn't like to explain, so he directly handed the water bags to the 3 of them. Qi Xianxian said from the side, when everyone was fighting and felt that their spiritual energy was about to be depleted, they immediately drank a mouthful of tea. Ha 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 ha. They had all consumed this tea before, so they naturally knew how effective it was. It was definitely a spiritual tea that had been revived on the spot. This time, Arbor really put in a lot of effort. She had prepared 10 cups of tea for each of the 8 people. Out of the 30 taels of expensive spiritual tea, she had used up 4 taels of 8 coins in one go. It was simply heartbreaking for her. Eat sparingly. There won't be any left after you finish it. Arbor reminded them not to waste the food. This thing was even more expensive than spirit stones. Wasting even a mouthful of it was a crime. Other than Hua Tao and the other 2 who didn't understand, the other 5 nodded their heads solemnly, indicating that they understood. Qi Xianxian turned to Hua Tao and the other 2 and reminded them kindly, drink this tea during the competition. Don't be curious and try it first. Every mouthful you drink is 1 mouthful less. You will definitely regret it later. After hearing Qi Xuanxuan's words, the 3 of them became even more curious about the tea in the water bags. Ding Yun was also curious. He blinked his black eyes at Arbor and asked, Jojo, what tea is that? Arbor snorted and proudly turned his head away. In less than 3 seconds, he turned back to look at him. Chapter 1723. Hey! What if someone happens to advance in the middle of the battle? Yeah, advance. That's really amazing. Young Master Ding smiled and said, but since it's a competition, of course we have to continue until the winner is decided. So, the person who advanced deserved to be attacked by the opponent. If there were no proper measures, the person who advanced after much difficulty might face being beaten up or even worse, being interrupted in going berserk. That was too dangerous. Young Master Ding blinked innocently. Who would advance in the middle of the competition? Then no matter how you advance, you need a buffer period, right? In other words, you might feel that you're about to advance. You can drag it out until the end of the competition and find a quiet place to advance. That's not necessarily true. Arbor snorted. After drinking the spirit tea, if you really want to advance, you won't be able to resist at all. Just like Qi Xianxian last time, didn't she have to meditate and enter the state immediately after advancing? Arbor thought about it. For safety's sake, she was determined not to cheat her teammates. She still took out a bunch of defensive rings from her pocket and distributed them to the other 7 people. If you advance later, remember to activate a few more defensive barriers around you. Don't embarrass me and get killed when you advance. Everyone took the 5 or 6 defensive rings that Arbor gave them and looked at her in confusion. Young Master Ding was also confused. His eyes lit up as he stared at her and asked, "Jojo, you sell defensive rings? You're the one who sells defensive rings. Your whole family sells defensive rings. But who would be able to pull out 30 to 40 defensive rings in one go? They're all low-grade spirit tools. They're not very useful. However, if everyone here activated 3 layers of defensive spirit tools, at least a level 1 spirit master wouldn't be able to break through the 3 layers of defense even after 2 or 3 days of hammering." Everyone looked at her in confusion. They silently looked down at the 5 or 6 defensive rings on their palms, then looked at the rings on the others' palms. Junior Sister Qiao's way of doing things was a little unsightly, wasn't it? They felt like they had gotten to know a very impressive person. "Jojo, you gave us the defensive equipment. What about you?" Qi Xianxian asked worriedly. "I still have a lot." Arbor took out 7 or 8 more for them to see, ignoring the slightly twisted expressions on their faces. There were more than 100 defensive rings in the pile of trash that Senior Giant Ape had given her as a tribute. Oh, no, it was the trash that Senior Xuanji had tricked over a dozen generations of disciples to obtain. There were simply too many defensive rings. Although she looked down on her own eggshell defensive ring, it had to be said that the defensive ring Mo Lian made was of a much higher level than this trash. The team members who were picking up trash silently put away their defensive rings and calmly put away their water bottles into their inner worlds. Then, they sat down beside or behind Arbor. Duanmu Qing and the other 2 naturally sat beside Arbor. Mata looked like an abandoned puppy. He looked at them pitifully and reluctantly followed his teammates to sit in the back row of Arbor's group. The 2 groups began to discuss how to cooperate in the battle later. Young Master Ding smiled and said, "When it's your turn later, your names will appear on the stone crystal screen." Chapter 1724. At the same time, I'll also call out the names to remind you. Just pay attention. There's nothing else to do now, so you can rest for a while. Arbor glanced at him indifferently. The words, "Why aren't you leaving yet?" were clearly written in her eyes. Young Master Ding laughed. He supported his chin with one hand and tilted his head to look at her. "I'm not leaving. You haven't forgiven me yet. If you do, I'll leave. Forgive your sister." Arbor rolled her eyes at him. She really didn't want to say anything more to this strange person. Young Master Ding was probably used to this little guy's lukewarm attitude, so he didn't mind. He just glanced at her with a smile and didn't say anything else. He didn't say anything and just sat obediently beside her to watch the competition. Although Arbor was a little depressed, she didn't chase him away. He was the manager of this underground fighting arena. He could stay anywhere. Ah Chio. Arbor raised her hand to rub her nose and tilted her head in surprise. For the past few days, she kept feeling that someone was talking about her behind her back. Among the group of short mentors who were sitting sneakily in the audience seats. One of the mentors, who had a square face and looked very serious, coughed lightly and whispered, "Aren't the requirements too high for the rules we set? Excluding support and mystic beasts, the only things that could be used were weapons and fists." "Hi. How is that possible?" The short mentor, Zhou Danjin, smiled wretchedly. "It doesn't exist. The requirements are too high. After discussing it, we set the requirements according to the standards that they can currently reach." Wei Wei nodded and thought to himself, "That's right. It's time to let that arrogant little girl suffer a setback. Things in this world can't always go smoothly. After suffering 2 losses in the arena, she knew that there was always someone better than her. Zhou Danjin grinned. Just watch. We're also trying to figure out the level of the children's martial strength, where the bottom line and upper limit are. It'll be easier for us to teach them all kinds of knowledge in the future. Zi Yinshi's section break. A blazing light suddenly rushed out from the 15th floor of the Tower of Punishment. This terrifying pitch-black flame rushed out in clusters and suddenly raised the 15-story tower to the ground. At this time, not to mention the talisman array, even the outer wall of the 15th floor of the tower had been burned and annihilated by the black fire. If one looked at it from the outside, they would find it very strange. This Tower of Punishment was floating in an unknown space. Aside from the top 2 floors that were intact, from the 15th floor onwards, every floor was broken. Every floor below seemed to have been ruthlessly looted, and the situation was extremely miserable. Mo Lien pursed her thin lips and arrived at the entrance of the 16th floor. She happened to bump into He Chen, who had a strange expression on her face. Ma Yingchen glanced at Prince Mo and looked him up and down. "Yo, you've changed your clothes." As he spoke, he stared at him with a malicious expression. "What did you see in the 3rd stage just now?" "I didn't see anything," Mo Lien replied expressionlessly. "Impossible." He Chen pursed his lips. "You don't look like someone who has no desires." The 15-story talisman array tested a person's greed for money, power, and beauty. Therefore, the last stage of the talisman array would definitely produce a bunch of stunning beauties. "Look at you. You've changed your clothes. You definitely couldn't control yourself just now." Chapter 1725. Hu Shichen snorted. "I'll definitely tell the little guy later." At the mention of Jojo, Mo Lien's expression became even stranger. "Wifey, wifey." As the two were chatting, they heard a ghastly wail and howl, which made both Hu Shichen and Mo Lien frown at the same time. Turning around to look, even Hu Shichen's calm expression could not help but twitch her mouth. Dao Wuji, with a head of messy hair, ran out shirtless in a pair of shorts. He first looked around, then slapped his thigh and shouted, "Where's my wifey? Aya, where's my beautiful wifey? Why are they all gone?" Needless to say, if Mo Lien had not destroyed the talisman array on the 15th floor, this guy would probably have sunk into the land of beauties forever. Mo Lien could not be bothered with him and turned around to head to the 16th floor. Hu Shichen followed behind him and persistently asked, "Did you see Jojo?" "What did you do to Jojo?" "I threw him out," Mo Lien said expressionlessly. "What?" Hu Shichen looked at the guy whose back was facing her, dumbfounded. "You said you threw Jojo out? How could you bear to do that? He's not the real Jojo, he's just a shadow to confuse people." Mo Lien said nonchalantly. But you saw Jojo, you. Could you do it?" Hu Shichen saw his side glance and shot her a murderous look, her voice could not help but slowly lower. "Then how did you pass the second talisman array test? Who did you see?" The second talisman array test one's desire for power, which should not be difficult for Prince Mo. Hu knew that Prince Mo was slightly startled, then lowered his eyes and said lightly, "You might not believe me." Go ahead." Ma Yingchen was slightly taken aback. Then, she saw Prince Mo step onto the end of the 16th floor's passageway and into the built-in mechanism tower. As soon as he walked in, the small mechanical tower began to move upwards until the mechanical sounds reached its peak. Only then did it stop. The small door of the mechanism tower opened, and the few of them walked out. They saw that the guards of the Luo brothers and above were all waiting for them at the entrance. Limitless Blade walked up and said, "Why are you all here?" The Luo brothers glanced at his disheveled appearance with obvious disdain. They snorted coldly and said, "Of course we're waiting for boss. Do you think we're waiting for you?" As the tower guardians, they could freely enter and exit the various floors of the Tower of Punishment without having to go through the test of the 15-floor tower array. Therefore, when the Luo brothers saw that Mo Lien, Yu Ying, and Qin Dao Wuji had entered the formation, they had been waiting for Prince Mo at the entrance of the 16th floor. "Boss, how are you? Did you get hurt in the pagoda formation?" The Luo brothers asked with concern. Mo Lien shook her head. "It's nothing serious." The Luo brothers immediately smiled and said, "As expected of our boss. You passed the 15-floor tower array so easily." "Humph," little Taisui said coldly, "so what if you passed a small tower array? What's there to congratulate you for? There are still 2 more difficult floors ahead waiting for you. When the time comes, humph. If you can't pass them, you'll die." Mo Lien ignored the child with the strange voice. Her gaze fell on the 7 doors in front of her. Other than the slightly different carvings on the doors, she could not see anything different. Chapter 1726. Feng Chen silently glanced at Prince Mo. "You haven't said it yet." Prince Mo said, "You might not believe me," but he didn't say anything else. "You're itching to know what this brat wants to say." Feng Chen felt like she had been played by the crown prince. Prince Mo calmly looked at the 7 doors in front of him and frowned. "I'll go to the first door." The patterns on the 7 doors were all different. Upon closer inspection, they seemed to be the patterns of different fierce beasts. The door Mo Lien chose had a blue-eyed 3-headed dog engraved on it. At first glance, it gave off the feeling of an ancient fierce beast. Dao Wuji glanced at it, and his heart pounded. This? Can't we enter the same door?" Little Taisui looked at him with disdain. "Scared? If you're scared, then don't come. You've already skimmed 3 floors in a row. You should be satisfied. If that brat hadn't destroyed the entire talisman array with holy fire, Dao Wuji wouldn't have been able to come out in less than 30 years. If he could, little Taisui would take his surname." This brat's words were too hateful. Although what he said was true, Dao Wuji was the sect master of the extreme saber sect. Did he have no shame? Little Taisui coldly glanced at Dao Wuji. "It's your turn to choose." Dao Wuji's body trembled, and he inexplicably felt a chill. The kid walked from the first door to the last one, hesitating and not knowing what to do. At this time, Sheng Chen had already chosen the second door. There was a lightning eagle engraved on it. "Have you chosen yet?" Little Taisui's childish and cold voice sounded again. It impatiently said, "You're so wishy-washy, just like a sissy. Hurry up and choose." After being scolded by little Taisui, Dao Wuji hurriedly looked from beginning to end. Finally, he stood in front of the 7th door. There was a large yellow cat engraved on the 7th door. It looked quite docile. Dao Wuji turned to look at little Taisui's expressionless face. He lightly coughed and said, I'll choose this one. Let me remind you. What you choose may not be what you see on the door." Hearing this, Infinite Blade shrugged casually. Don't think that I'll back down just because you said that. I'll take it. If you want to trick me, you'll have to train for a few more years." Little Taisui glanced at him and said in an indifferent voice, "You've probably already guessed that there's a beast behind each door. It could be a Xian beast, a spirit beast, or even a divine beast or a saint beast. That will depend on your luck. If he were to encounter Xian beasts or spirit beasts, it would naturally be a piece of cake for him to kill them within minutes. If they were unfortunate enough to encounter a divine beast, perhaps it would be a high-level divine beast, then they would have a good fight. As for the holy beasts, whether or not they would be able to leave this place was another matter altogether. Even an immortal venerable might not be able to defeat a sacred beast that was in the middle of its growth stage. One could imagine that if one were to accidentally open the door of a sacred beast, one could only chuckle and bear a grudge. Everlasting Blade immediately switched to another door. He switched to the door with a plant carved on it. Compared to animal-type beasts, plant-type flowers and trees were definitely slightly easier to deal with. The door in front of him had a large, gorgeous morning glory carved on it. Although its gaping mouth didn't look very friendly, but what kind of danger had he, Dao Wuji, not been afraid of? Humph. Dao Wuji definitely didn't believe that he was the only one with the worst luck among the three of them. Chapter 1727. In these 7 doors, there is an ancient super holy beast at the early stage of maturity, little Tai Sui said calmly. Dao Wuji's eyes widened. What? Do you know what an ancient holy beast at the early stage of maturity means? Even 10 immortal supremacies would have a hard time defeating it, let alone a spiritual supremacy like me. Are you kidding me? Little Tai Sui shook his head, as if saying, do I look like someone who would joke with you? However, this holy beast wandered out on its own many years ago and never came back. The Tower of Punishment can't capture its aura, so it has been allowed to wander outside for so many years. To put it simply, one of the 7 doors is actually an empty door. Dao Wuji's eyes lit up. Oh my, is that so? There's an empty door. Dao Wuji hurriedly ran around and looked around. Finally, after a moment of hesitation, he decided to stand in front of the big yellow cat. Since it was a holy beast that could wander outside, it definitely couldn't be a plant. Unless it was holy wood, there was no other way for a plant to reach the level of a holy beast. It would be good enough for a plant to reach the level of a divine beast at most. And it wanted to reach the level of a saint. Impossible, impossible. Dao Wuji looked at the big yellow cat carved on the door. On the surface, it looked quite docile, but could it actually be? It was a ferocious beast. Besides, little Tai Sui had just said that the beast inside might not be the one carved on the door. What if the 3-headed hound was hiding behind the big yellow cat's door and waiting for its prey to come to it? Wouldn't that be a huge loss for him? No, he had to do the opposite. As the saying went, luck was always given to those who were prepared. He decided that little Tai Sui couldn't stand seeing that he was going to change doors again. It threw 3 palms at the 3 doors in front of it. The doors in front of Mo Lian, He Shichen, and Dao Wuji opened at the same time. A suction force suddenly pulled the 3 of them in. The 3 of them raised their eyes and looked forward. Separated by each other's doors, their faces revealed expressions of indifference, slight astonishment, and shock. As soon as Everlasting Blade entered the room, he heard an ear-piercing gurgling sound. He was almost hit by a stream of green mucus. He looked up with a serious expression and saw a big morning glory that reached the roof of the house. It was looking at him with bad intentions. Suddenly, the petals opened and spat out a mouthful of sticky liquid. The green mucus was dodged by Everlasting Blade and fell to the ground. Everlasting Blade saw a large hole in the ground that had been corroded by the sticky liquid. Fuck. He couldn't help but curse out loud. That little Tai Sui really wasn't a good thing. How wicked. He was directly thrown into this house. Clearly, the beast engraved on the door was a tame yellow-spotted cat, but what was waiting for him inside the door was a big morning glory. Life is full of surprises. As for Yuan Shichen and Mo Lian, they were also surprised. Yuan Shichen had clearly chosen a thunder eagle to enter, but inside the house was a big yellow cat that was curled up in a corner and looking at him pitifully. When the big cat saw someone enter, it immediately hugged its head with its paws and rubbed against the corner of the wall with a pitiful and aggrieved expression. Yuan Shichen looked at it in surprise, and his lips twitched. Chapter 1728. It can't be, right? Wasn't this big yellow-spotted cat the one that Dao Wuji wanted to fight? How did he end up in his room? Hu Shichen circled around this big yellow spotted cat and confirmed once again that this big cat didn't have any attack power at all. It was just a high-level mystical beast. Although it could be considered a ferocious beast outside, in his hands, it was just a small mystical beast. If he really wanted to kill it, it really would be as easy as blowing off dust. Hu Shichen only took 2 steps forward and slowly raised his hand. That big cat tactfully laid down along the corner of the wall and waved its paw at him in a friendly manner. Mo Lien's side was even more strange. After he looked around the room, he didn't find any trace of a mystical beast. Thinking about what little Taisui said before, Prince Mo's expression became somewhat subtle. It seemed that he had walked into dog shit luck and stepped on an empty door. Was this called heaven-defying luck? Even if Dao Wuji heard this, he might not necessarily believe it. Dao Wuji was currently bitterly fighting with that big morning glory. If he knew now that Mo Lien had broken through an empty door and Hu Shichen had attacked a small mystical beast, he would most likely vomit blood. It was truly infuriating to compare oneself to others. Dao Wuji could only leap up and use all 18 classes of martial arts to deal with this morning glory in front of him. Right now, he could only hope that this big morning glory that could spew venom didn't have that much venom in its stomach. Enough is enough. When Prince Mo pushed open the door and walked out, he just happened to see Hu Shichen walking out with a small yellow spotted cat. That small cat docilely leaned against his feet with a, "I'm very obedient, very sensible," look on its face. Seeing this, Mo Lien couldn't help but feel somewhat astonished. Could it be that Hu Shichen had encountered such a small cat that had no fighting power at all in this door? Apart from being a pet, what else could this small cat do? If you counted on it to bite or tear people apart, it would probably kick this coward far away with a single kick. The tests of these 2 doors were simply non-existent to Mo Lien and Hu Shichen. The 2 of them came out for a while before they realized that Dao Wuji had not come out yet. Behind each closed door, there was no sound at all. Mo Lien and He Chen naturally could not hear that idiot Dao Wuji's cries for help from behind the door. The 2 of them waited for a while, but Dao Wuji did not come out. They could not help but look at each other silently. "Boss, why don't we go to the top floor first?" The Luo brothers went up and asked. Who knew how long he would have to wait for this Dao Wuji? If he hadn't come out of the door yet, then he must have been entangled by some giant spirit beast or divine beast. Whether or not he could come out was another matter altogether. If he didn't come out, boss couldn't just wait endlessly. To think that this fellow had seriously chosen the door 3 times in the beginning. In the end, Mo Lien nodded calmly. He had only interacted with Dao Wuji for a few days. There was no deep relationship between them. Leaving him alone on the 16th floor did not make much of a difference. Everyone happily left Everlasting Blade, who was locked in a fierce battle with the Morning Glory, and walked up the passage to the 17th floor. Poor Dao Wuji was currently entangled by a few roots and could not free himself. Just as the big Morning Glory opened its petals and the green venom was about to arrive. Chapter 1729. In a hurry, Dao Wuji made a prompt decision and chopped off half of his hair. Rolling on the ground, he stood up with a whoosh. Just as he was about to open the door and escape, the big Morning Glory behind him seemed to be enraged as it let out a hissing sound. Suddenly, it opened its huge mouth and shot out a large ball of green mucus, which sprayed towards Dao Wuji. Limitless Blade was unable to dodge this time and was sprayed head-on. He immediately cried out tragically, "I'm finished." However, Dao Wuji, who was sprayed with this large ball of venom, did not die on the spot. Instead, he felt a chill on his face and body. He carefully opened his eyes and found that he was wrapped in a large ball of green mucus and hung upside down on one of the branches of the big Morning Glory. Hanging upside down like this, the blood in his head was about to rush up. Moreover, he glanced and found that he was not the first pitiful person to be hung up. Before him, there seemed to be many people hanging upside down on its branches. It was just that when the fight started, Dao Wuji did not notice this at all. Now that he looked again, he saw that those people had already turned into hundreds of thousands of dried corpses in the green mucus. It was obvious that they had become food for this man-eating flower. Could it be that he would also become food for this man-eating flower? Would he become a dried corpse? Dao Wuji struggled to break free from the mucus, but it was to no avail. After spending so much effort and not being able to leave, Dao Wuji could not help but give up. Hanging upside down on the stem of the flower, he started to think about life that he would not normally think about. Shantian Prefecture's Wuxia City, Qianluo Underground Arena. The atmosphere at this time was already very intense. At this time, the Qianluo Underground Arena had opened 2 levels of battle rings. On the lower level, there were 2 contestants who were engaged in a normal battle. In the middle of the arena, the upper level of the arena rose up and a champion stood on it. The guarding match and the normal match were going on at the same time. When the fight was exciting, there were thunderous cheers coming from all directions. They only hated that their parents did not give them more eyes. All kinds of profound skills crisscrossed in front of his eyes, and the 5 spirits appeared simultaneously. Sometimes, the battles on the upper and lower levels were too intense, causing his eyes to not be able to see enough. Just now, after one of the champions who had defended until the 9th round was kicked off the stage, that person became the new champion. He had a badge hanging on his chest, and his chin was raised high and proud. However, in less than 3 rounds, he was beaten to death by the waves behind him. Arbor sat and watched for a while. She saw that they were all one-on-one matches, but in her opinion, they were not that exciting. Therefore, after watching for a while, he lost interest in continuing to watch. Arbor closed his eyes and leaned against the stool. He was a little drowsy. In the past, people who were used to taking afternoon naps every day had been training every day. How could they have time to slack off? Half an hour later, just as Arbor was about to fall asleep, he heard a series of screams. The crowd in the underground fighting ground seemed to have been ignited by something as they instantly burst into an uproar. Arbor opened his eyes and looked ahead in confusion. Then, he turned to look at Qi Xianxian. "It's not our turn yet." "No, it said that one of the Bullmen team is very powerful. Right now, they are ranked first in the group competition." All the lights in the arena were focused on the 2 small teams of 5. The crowd who had watched the Bullmen team's matches before were even more excited. Chapter 1730. These 2 teams were made up of 5 people. One of the teams had 5 people wearing green shirts with a frog embroidered on the back. The other team was wearing white shirts with both men and women wearing the same color. Arbor was no longer sleepy after hearing the commotion. He looked at the 2 teams and asked curiously, "Which team is number 1? "The white shirt team, Team Bull Bull." Qi Xianxian frowned. In other words, if so many of them wanted to rank among the top in this competition, they really had to defeat the bull race team. While they were chatting, the 2 teams had already started fighting. Arbor realized that the 2 teams each had their own set of coordination skills. He looked at them thoughtfully with great interest. The team competition should be about mobilizing everyone to fight together. There was no need for you to show off your individual skills. Arbor pondered as he watched. He said to Little Fatty, "Later when it's our turn to fight. Let's try fighting like this. Activate your earth shield and go first. Xianxian and I will attack from the back. Duanmu will assist from the side." Everyone nodded in unison. While they were talking, they suddenly heard a mocking laugh from the side. "Io, isn't this our Ko-family's little fatty genius, Ko Hongwen? Why are you here? Could it be that you don't have enough money to spend, so you can only come to the competition to earn money?" After these words were spoken, a few mocking laughs came from the side. It was like a background noise, helping the man who spoke earlier to mock little Fatty. The little genius has actually fallen to such a state. Tell me, if your father and mother saw this, wouldn't they be heartbroken? What do you know? Being poor will force a hero to his death. Moreover, the little genius doesn't lack money at all. Ha ha ha. The mocking voices were endless. Little Fatty Ko Homwen's face darkened. He raised his pair of angry eyes and coldly stared at the group of people opposite him. This group of hedonistic young masters all held a fan in their hands and pretended to be distinguished officials. However, their eyes couldn't help but glance at Qi Xianxian and Arbor. Seeing Arbor and Qi Xianxian sitting on either side of little Fatty, a trace of jealousy flashed across the eyes of the leader of the group. This damn Fatty already looked like a country bumpkin, so why were there still girls hanging around him? It was the same in the Ko family. That damned Fatty, he was obviously a fat and round bumpkin, but there were many girls in the family who liked this little Fatty. Wasn't he just more talented than the average Ko family member? But, he was just a country bumpkin, and his parents were just from a side branch of the Ko clan. How could a country bumpkin like him compete with the legitimate son of the Ko clan for resources and girls? How preposterous. The little Fatty's face turned red. What does it have to do with you whether I'm short of money or not? Ko Hongjin, what do you want? Humph, I'll kick you out of the Ko clan and order you to return to the countryside. You actually dared to return to Anka City? I have to say, you're really bold. Little Fatty's eyes were filled with anger. I have not learned anything. I will not go back. Ha ha ha. A vicious glint flashed across Ko Hongjin's eyes. A somewhat twisted smile hung on his originally handsome face. Do you think there will be any academy within 100 miles of Anka City that will take you in? It's you. Chapter 1731. The little Fatty was so angry that he was trembling all over, unable to control himself. He finally understood why he was suddenly chased out of the clan, and at the same time, chased out of the academy that he had been in for more than 2 years. It turned out that everything was because of this kid in front of him. No, rather than saying that this kid was behind it, it was better to say that his father, the head of the Ko family, was backing him up from behind. Otherwise, how could Ko Hongjin, a hedonistic young master, convince Daeyo Academy not to accept him? Although Daeyo Academy's reputation in the Shuntian continent could not be compared to the 4 major academies, it was still a regular academy with a sizable scale. Usually, he studied well in Daeyo Academy and was always ranked in the top 10 of the academy. Suddenly, one day, the academy issued an expulsion order for no reason. In less than a day, the academy told him to pack up his things and leave without even giving him a reason. After that, he ran into a wall everywhere. All the academies near Anka City were unwilling to take him in. Subconsciously, he did not want to leave Anka City. After all, Anka City was not too far from his Zhaoping town. If he was free, he could go home and take care of his parents. Previously, he didn't understand why Daeyo Academy would suddenly expel him for no reason. Now, it seemed that the Ko family was involved in this. Ko Hongjin was just a dandy, so his words naturally did not carry much weight. If the head of the Ko family, Ko Dihai, spoke up, it would not be on the same level. Why did you do this? Ko Hongjin glanced at the little Fatty in disgust and laughed mockingly. I just don't like you. Why, can't I? Ko Hongwen clenched his 2 chubby little fists tightly, his face full of anger. He really could not figure it out. Although he came from the countryside and was not a direct descendant of the Ko family, he still had the same surname. But no matter what, they were all surnamed Ko, from the same clan. Why did they treat him like this? Usually, when he was in the Ko family, he tried his best to keep a low profile and did not cover the sharpness of the few direct descendants of the Ko family. Wasn't he doing a good enough job? How could they treat him like a member of the Ko family? Little Fatty opened his mouth, only to feel that his throat was extremely dry, and his heart was heavy and uncomfortable. Qi Xianxian glanced at him and immediately jumped up in anger. She put her hands on her hips and scolded, "A bunch of brats, are you tired of living? All of you scram. Get out of my sight." Ko Hongzhen's expression changed slightly. He sneered at Qi Xianxian and said, "Ladies, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't be fooled by the simple and honest face of this fatty in front of you. He was not an honest man. A few months ago, he was expelled from the Ko family for stealing the family's elixirs. Now, he's a complete pauper." Qi Xianxian kicked Ko Hongzhen's leg without any explanation. This kick contained 70% of a level 14 mystic cultivator's strength, and it nearly fractured Ko Hongzhen's calf. With a cry, Ko Hongzhen fell backwards. The other hedonistic sons of rich families who were accompanying them hastily gathered around and caught Ko Hongzhen, who was falling backwards. "Why did you hit him?" one of them shouted in exasperation. Another person also sneered, "Sure enough, he's in the same team as a peasant. All of you are uncivilized barbarians." Chapter 1732. Tisk, blind man. Qi Xianxian sneered. "Did this great ant use my hand? It was clearly my foot, all right." As she spoke, she ruthlessly punched one of them in the face. "Freaking look carefully, this is a real hand. You idiot." Bam! That person simply couldn't dodge in time and was hit squarely by Qi Xuanchuan's fist. He also fell backward and smashed onto the hard ground with a bang. However, the arena was very noisy right now, and most people's gazes were focused on the two-tiered arena. Only a few nearby people waiting for their matches were focused on Qi Xianxian and Ko Hongzhen's group. Ko Hongzhen was so angry that his face flushed red. He probably didn't expect that this little girl in front of him would actually attack them for Ko Hongwen. He immediately flew into a rage and spoke without thinking. He pointed at Qi Xianxian and sneered, "As expected, you're two pigs, one male and one female. You're both short, fat, and round, and have the same rotten taste." "What did you say?" The little fatty roared, "I forbid you from insulting my friend." Qi Xianxian lowered her head to look at her small, round body, and her charming face flushed red from anger. In reality, Qi Xianxian, this little foodie, only had a slightly round body due to her gluttony. She also had a naturally round baby face, so she looked a bit chubby from head to toe. However, she was far from being short, fat, and round. Upon seeing that Ko Hongzhen's foul mouth was about to make Qi Xianxian cry, the little fatty immediately stopped arguing with Ko Hongzhen and hastily turned to comfort Qi Xianxian. Ko Hongzhen sneered and said, "What, did I say something wrong? They're a pair of shameless people to begin with." Slap. 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 Then, 3 light and crisp slaps rang out, each with a rhythmic interval of 1 second. Ko Hongzhen was dumbfounded by the slaps. Earlier, they all saw very clearly that the little stoic with a frosty face in front of them didn't even touch Ko Hongzhen with her fingers. She merely flung out streaks of water spirit into the air, forming huge transparent palms, and slapped the stupefied Ko Hongzhen on the left side of his face 3 times in succession. "How dare you hit me?" As soon as Ko Hongzhen opened his mouth, he realized that something was wrong. Not only were his teeth loose, but there was also a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. He was so scared that he screamed. "You sound so girly." Xiao Mu creased her brows and raised her hand again. 3 streams of adept water spirits instantly transformed into 3 transparent palms. He flew straight towards Ko Hongzhen, and without the slightest hesitation. He once again slapped the other side of his face 3 times. Only then did he nod in satisfaction and say, "It's symmetrical now." Everyone was speechless for a moment and silently turned to look at her. The commotion at this moment had already attracted the attention of many people who were looking at the arena. Arbor pulled Qi Xianxian over and patted the back of her head. Learn from me. He really didn't understand why he had to spout so much nonsense before hitting someone. What's there to quarrel about? In the face of strength, those who are nagging are simply the actions of fools. Her master had told her before that if she hit someone, she had to hit them to death. Either she didn't hit them at all, or she would beat them to death so that they wouldn't retaliate later on and cause a ruckus. Arbor felt that this was very reasonable. Recently, she kept inexplicably recalling the words that her master and Aunt Master had told her. Would she be able to find them if she remembered everything one day? Chapter 1733. When Ko Hongjin opened his mouth, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and a few of his teeth fell out. Looking at the teeth on the ground, the expression in his eyes changed from fear. Teeth. Teeth fell out. Ah. Teeth fell out. Ko Hongjin's face was filled with fear and shock as he stared in Arbor's direction. However, the latter acted as if nothing had happened. He held Qi Xuanxuan's hand and sat down. He coldly glanced at Ko Hongjin, who was surrounded by the Ko family's spoiled brats. Not satisfied? Arbor frowned slightly. His cold gaze swept past Ko Hongjin's body, causing him to tremble for no reason. How could Ko Hongjin dare to not be satisfied? He had already been beaten to this state. If he still refused to be satisfied, wouldn't he have to continue being beaten? These lackeys beside him were usually quite useful, but when it came to crucial moments, none of them were useful. I am leaving. Ko Hongjin's lips trembled as he screamed. Before he left, he glared at the little fatty, his eyes filled with anger. Arbor raised his eyelids and looked at him meaningfully. This glance inexplicably made Ko Hongjin's heart tremble. He had a feeling that something bad was about to happen to him. Ko Hongjin limped forward with the help of others. However, before he could take a few steps, one of the Ko family's lackeys cried out in shock, young master, young master. Your face. What's all the fuss about?" Ko Hongjin was thinking about how to persuade his father to bring people to get back at them. When he heard his lackeys scream, he slapped him on the head without any explanation. However, this slap didn't make the lackey shut up. Instead, it caused a few of the Ko family's disciples to cry out in shock. The person who was supporting him even retracted his hand as if he had thrown something dirty. His expression was ugly as he took a few steps back before he stopped. What happened? Ko Hongjin only realized that something was wrong when he spoke. Why did he feel that his voice was a bit muffled? He raised his hand to touch his face and was immediately horrified. His originally delicate and pretty face was now swollen like a steamed bun. Why is it so swollen? As soon as he opened his mouth, Ko Hongjin realized that because his face was deformed, he couldn't even speak properly. His face had suddenly become so bloated and fat. This was simply inconceivable. Wah! The Ko family's people hurriedly retreated, their faces filled with horror as they tried to distance themselves from young Lord Ko. It seemed that this young Lord Ko had been afflicted with some kind of strange poison, and Yang Kai wondered if it would spread to them. At a time like this, no one dared to help or touch him. Everyone was very worried, wondering if they would be infected by young Lord Ko's poison. As a result, no one dared to get close to Ko Hongjin. They formed a semicircle from afar and looked at Ko Hongjin, whose face was swollen like a meat bun. In just a few minutes, Ko Hongjin's face no longer looked like a normal human face. Not only was his face as fat as a ball, but his swollen face even squeezed his originally normal eyes into two curved slits. At first glance, this person's face and body proportions were rather out of place, completely out of proportion. His head was like a big winter melon, but the rest of his body below his neck was normal. Young Lord Ko was shocked and frightened, his small eyes filled with fear. Chapter 1734. Everyone retreated to the side when they saw him. No one dared to come into contact with him. The melon-headed Ko Hongjin held his face in fear and roared twice. Then, he looked pleadingly at the surrounding Ko family members for help. However, the Ko family members all ran away faster than rats. No one dared to approach him. Ko Hongjin was shocked and scared. He had no idea what was happening to him. Seeing that no one came forward to help him, he could only turn around and run out of the arena. He wailed and howled along the way. Mata sneered and said, he went home to cry to his father. When Qi Xianxian saw Ko Hongjin's miserable state, the slight unhappiness in her heart was swept away. Her round little face was full of smiles. She turned to look at Arbor and said, Jojo, you're taking revenge for us, aren't you? Arbor didn't even bat an eyelid. He said expressionlessly, do I look like someone who would do something so senseless? Yes. Everyone agreed in their hearts and nodded secretly. At this moment, a subordinate quietly walked to young Master Ding's side. He bent down and whispered into his ear. Young Master Ding looked up at him and nodded. He turned to Arbor and said, Jojo, I'm going to take care of something. I'll be back soon. If you need anything, send someone to inform Steward Tang. Tang Cheng, take good care of Miss Chiao. If anything happens to her, I'll hold you responsible. Steward Tang, who was called out, hurriedly squeezed out a smile and bowed to Arbor and young Master Ding. Don't worry, young master. I'll definitely take good care of Miss Chiao. I definitely won't let anyone bully her. Arbor glanced at young Master Ding. His gaze shifted to young Master Ding's departing figure before he retracted it. At this moment, the name of their team appeared on the crystal screen, Team Lychee. When the three words, Team Lychee, appeared, everyone instantly laughed. This was because their opponent was Team Lions. Team Lions versus Team Lychee. Just by looking at the name of the team, one could tell who was better. Team Lychee's teammates silently glanced at their team leader with a stoic face. One had to know that the squad leader had chosen this name quite casually. When they went to register earlier, the little stoic was nibbling on a lychee. She racked her brains but couldn't think of a good team name. She glanced at the lychee in her hand. They might as well become famous. Ahem. Mata smiled behind them and comforted Arbor and the others. It's okay. In order to show the loyalty of the students from the top academies, everyone went in and out together, so the names had to be similar. As the captain of the first group, Hua Tao decided on the name of his team, Longan Team. Success! Hua Tao and the other three clenched their fists at Arbor and the others. Arbor silently turned his eyes away, got up, and walked towards the center of the arena. Little Fatty, Qi Xianxian and Duan Muqing stood up at the same time and followed her towards the arena. The two teams came out of the two passageways at the same time. When they saw each other, the 5 men of the lion team couldn't help but laugh out loud. He's smiling like an idiot. Qi Xianxian muttered. When the two teams stood on the arena, a wave of explosive laughter resounded from all directions. In modern times, the 5 members of the lion team were all 1.9 meters tall giants. On the other side, other than Duan Muqing's height, his 3 teammates were all dwarves. The little stoic was expressionless. In reality, she had no idea what was going on at all. Chapter 1735. They didn't know what the others were laughing at, but they were all laughing like idiots. Arbor's face was expressionless. She didn't cooperate with the laughter at all. Her face was as cold as frost, and her clear eyes glanced at them. Thus the 5 members of the lion team, who had been laughing heartily, couldn't help but rub their noses. The young lady in front of them was of normal height for her age. However, in front of the burly men of the lion team, she appeared especially petite and cute. Little girl, it's not too late to leave the arena now. If we really fight later, we won't go easy on you just because you're small. Yes, our fists are very powerful. Don't cry when you get beaten up. You can't say that the lion team bullies women and children. Arbor looked at the staff members in front of the arena. Why aren't you sounding the gong? They could start the battle as soon as the gong sounded. There was no efficiency in dilly-dallying. The staff member was clearly taken aback. He probably didn't expect Team Lychee to be so bold as to continue the competition despite the obvious comparison between them and the lion team. Team Lychee. This name sounded like a joke. For members of Team Lychee and 5 members of the lion team. Begin. Following the sound of a gong, the little fatty laughed mischievously. His left foot suddenly stomped on the ground, and he immediately pounced towards the lions like an arrow released from a bow. A thick earth shield blocked in front of him. It was 6 feet long and wide. It was more than enough for his team members to hide behind. Qi Xuanxuan's hand flashed, and a bolt of spirit lightning struck the lion team, causing them to scream. They didn't even wait for the lion team to react before attacking. Arbor's ice spikes flew towards the lion team. Duanmu Qing's wood spirit also wrapped around the ankles of 2 lion team members. The 2 of them couldn't react in time and couldn't break free from Duanmu Qing's wood spirit. They could only watch as Arbor's ice spikes flew towards their chests. Alarmed, they hurriedly raised their defenses to the maximum. However, the icicles pierced through their defensive barriers. The 2 of them were about to be shot through by the arbor. At the critical moment, the captain of the lions roared and summoned a ferocious beast covered in copper armor. When the beast was released, its hair stood on end. It turned around and roared at the members of Team Lychee in arbor. This guy had copper skin and iron bones. When he stood in front of the lions, he really looked like he could hold back 10,000 men all by himself. In his rage, little fatty did not hesitate to open his mouth and shout back at it. The bronze-armored beast was stunned for a moment, then it roared a few more times. Little fatty followed suit and roared back. Everyone was speechless. This man and beast did not understand each other at all, yet they were still in the mood to bicker. When the other 4 members of Team Lychee saw that their captain had even taken out his trump card spirit beast to block the attack, they didn't hesitate and summoned their mystic beasts from their mystic beast spaces. As a result, the 5 people and 5 beasts glared at Arbor's Team Lychee like tigers eyeing their prey. In terms of numbers, Team Lychee completely defeated the Little Stoics team. Chapter 1736. However, this only meant one thing: they had more people than the Little Stoics Team Lychee. But in terms of true strength, Arbor's Team Lychee was clearly superior to Team Lion in terms of talent, age, and combat spiritual techniques. Spiritual techniques were a level higher than mystic techniques and could only be learned after advancing to the spiritual realm. It was something that spiritual masters yearned for even in their dreams. A good introductory spiritual technique could save spiritual masters at least 3 years of detours. Whether it was the growth of cultivation techniques or the cultivation of spiritual techniques, it had profound implications. Although Team Lychee only had 4 people, needless to say, Duanmu Qing and Arbor's cultivation techniques were definitely top-notch. Qi Xuanxuan's spiritual techniques weren't weak either. Although the little fatty was slightly inferior, he was someone who could run around with his earth shield activated, so he didn't have high requirements for spiritual techniques. Normal people simply couldn't do anything to him. Many times, it wasn't easy to do things with more people. For example, right now, the little fatty in the ring had activated his earth shield and nimbly ran in front of the Lion's captain, forcefully withstanding a few of his attacks. Team Lion's captain was flabbergasted and also a bit shocked. Although the little fatty didn't look impressive, his earth shield was too strange. Putting aside the fact that it was wider and bigger than the earth shield activated by level 15 mystic cultivators of the same level, wasn't this earth shield maintained for too long? Under the protection of the earth shield, the little fatty was able to move for close to an hour. During this time, he activated his earth shield and circled around his captain all day long. He really wanted to kick this nimble fatty to death. For the first battle, the main purpose was to allow all the members to work together and get used to each other. When Arbor felt that it was about time, he waved his hand. Instantly, spiritual lightning and spiritual wood blotted out the sky and smashed toward Team Lion. The onlookers were dazzled. After the spiritual lightning stopped, they looked up and saw that Team Lion's 5 members and 5 beasts were forced to retreat step by the other 4. The people who were laughing at Team Lychee's height couldn't laugh anymore. The tall and sturdy Team Lion actually couldn't last more than 100 moves against Team Lychee. Everyone fell silent. In fact, Arbor had gone easy on them during these 100 moves. He wanted to keep a low profile and didn't want to expose the team's strength right from the start. Otherwise, let alone 100 moves, he didn't even know if these people could survive 10 moves. There were so many people in the Lion's team, but their footsteps were a little complicated. When the captain's bronze-armored spirit beast rushed up, the rest of the team members also ran forward together. In such a rush to be the first, there was no longer a primary and secondary formation. After a round of fierce fighting, everyone's spiritual energy was obviously going downhill. However, Arbor and the others didn't feel that way. Little Fatty, Qi Xian, and Duan Wuqing, who had drunk 2 mouthfuls of water during the fight, all felt that their strength had recovered. This feeling was quite good. The spirit veins that were originally about to dry up were now overflowing with spirit energy due to the stimulation and replenishment from the spirit tea. Ha ha ha. Eat my hammer. Little Fatty reached out and took out his double-headed hammer. Without any explanation, he smashed it towards a person's head. A swift and violent force fell from the sky and flipped the man over on the spot. His neck hurt. He slept soundly and made up for 2 nights during the day. Chapter 1737. At the same time, Arbor's mystic energy and Qi Xuanxuan's 3 thunderbolts simultaneously attacked the leading bronze-armored spirit beast. The spirit beast had already developed intelligence. When it saw the ferocious attacks from the other party, it naturally wouldn't just stand there and wait for the lightning to strike. However, the moment it leaped, it realized that its 4 limbs had been firmly bound to the ground by Duan Wuqing's wood thorns. How could it move an inch? Thus, this bronze-armored spirit beast bore the brunt of the unlucky attack. Not only did the thunderbolt strike it until it was charred on the outside and tender on the inside, Arbor's mystic energy just happened to hit its head. Instantly, this humongous spirit beast was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground. After a long while, it merely rubbed on the ground, unable to stand up. The lion team's captain cried out in alarm and hurriedly ran over to check on his partner. When he realized that the bronze-armored spirit beast wasn't in any danger, he heaved a sigh of relief and turned back to look at Arbor and the rest with a complicated expression. He wasn't a fool and could naturally tell that the other party had shown mercy. For this reason, the lion team's captain felt some gratitude in his heart. Meanwhile, the other members of the lion team couldn't laugh anymore. The captain nodded at Arbor. The younger generation will surpass us in time. We've lost. His team had summoned 5 beasts and even a spirit beast, but they still weren't a match for the other party. In fact, the other party didn't even summon a single mystic beast. He had relied on his own strength to defeat them. There was no longer a need to continue the competition. The lion team's captain nodded and said, "The lion team concedes defeat." Arbor glanced at them and felt that their attitudes were rather straightforward. They weren't like the others who refused to accept their loss and dawdled and wasted time. The results of the competition were immediately announced on the crystal stone screen. The spectators couldn't help but look at each other in dismay. There were even people who suddenly stood up agitatedly and slapped the fence as they cursed loudly. Arbor followed Duan Wuqing and the rest out of the arena and returned to his seat. He speechlessly looked at the cursing crowd and asked with a puzzled expression, "What are they cursing about?" Manager Tang quickly smiled and said, "These people all bet on the Lions to win. They've lost a lot of money now." "Oh." Arbor turned to look at the steward. "Can I participate? Miss also wants to place a bet." Manager Tang said with a smile. "Of course. Place your bets today and open tomorrow. For normal competitions, it depends on the individual or team's odds. If I can buy a dark horse like you, then I can make a huge profit. I'm betting on the final winner of the main arena." "Ah." Manager Tang was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, "If you can bet on the final winner of the main tournament, you can get 10 times the spirit coins." "I bet 280,000 spirit coins." Arbor said with an indifferent expression. Beside him, Qi Xianxian, Duan Muqing, and the others could not help but twitch their mouths. "Ah. 280,000. 10,000 spirit coins. Could it be that this young lady had bet her entire fortune and life on this?" Manager Tang also wanted to remind her that although it was very profitable to bet on the final arena champion, it wasn't that easy to guess. In all these years, there had almost never been a single competition where someone had correctly guessed the final arena champion. "Go buy it." Arbor took out 3 large bags of spirit coins from his inner world and poured some into his own money pouch before handing the rest to the steward. The steward accepted the 280,000 spirit coins in bewilderment. He heard the little stoic say crisply, "I'm betting all on myself winning." Chapter 1738. Buy some for me too. Mata hurriedly took out some spirit coins and gave them to Manager Tang. Qi Xianxian, Little Fatty, and even Duan Muqing all took out a bag of spirit coins and gave them to Manager Tang. "We will also bet on Jojo's victory." Crazy. Manager Tang only felt that the group of people in front of him might be his young master's friends, but he felt that their intelligence was not on the same level as his young master. Why did these young masters and ladies seem to be retarded? Why did they place their bets so stubbornly? Manager Tang received so many spirit coins and went to arrange for the bets. When he left, his footsteps were still light. Qi Xianxian chuckled. "Look at his silly look. He looks at us as if we are fools. He doesn't know that he is the fool." Arbor looked at them silently. "How much did you bet?" 30,000. "My life is on you. We are counting on you, Jojo." Mata popped his head out from behind them and grinned. 20,000. "That is all I have." Little Fatty said. 800. Qi Xianxian cried silently. She had already dug through all her pockets and used all her pocket money to bet. "It's okay, Xianxian. When I earn money, I will share half with you." Little Fatty said. His 20,000 turned into 200,000. He didn't feel any heartache even if he shared half with Xianxian. Mata thought for a moment. "Then I will share 100,000 with you too, Xianxian." Qi Xianxian looked touched. She patted Little Fatty and Mata's shoulders. "Brothers, you are very kind." Arbor looked at them expressionlessly. These people were already splitting the money, as if they had already gotten the money. She turned to look at Duan Muqing, who looked calm. "How much did you bet?" "The upper limit." Duan Muqing calmly spat out these 2 words, causing Qi Xianxian, Little Fatty, Ma Ta, and the others to look at him in shock. "What is the upper limit?" Arbor asked curiously. 500,000. Qi Xianxian and the other 2 said in unison. "Damn, the boss was here." Arbor nodded expressionlessly. He heard Duan Muqing say, "If we win, I'll give you half." "Yay!" Qi Xianxian almost jumped up. It was as if the money was already in her hands. Xiao Mu gazed at them silently. "Say, do you think the instructor is hiding in some corner and counting money?" The mentors that Arbor was talking about were indeed sitting in a corner far away. They whispered to Zhou Danjin, "How's it going? How much have you earned?" Don't be hasty. Our first bet wasn't much, but the odds were high. We earned more than 10,000 yuan. Next time, the odds will definitely change, sigh. Earn more money and renovate the college peak. Look at what kind of rooms the students are living in. Don't you feel ashamed living in a lump of dirt? They are here to cultivate, not to enjoy life. Don't tell me we have to build a palace for them to live in. Instructor Wei Wei said faintly. Cough, the dean said that all the money earned this time will be used to build houses. How is that enough? Zhou Danjin said with a pained expression. Moreover, just the few stalks of spirit herbs that are used to maintain the flaming energy peak has almost emptied our entire savings. No money, no money, no money. The little girl should be going to sign up for the single elimination tournament, Wei Wei said calmly. Oh. How do you know? If she doesn't sign up for the single elimination tournament, do you think she can achieve the points you set previously by just fighting in normal competitions? Chapter 1739. Zhou Danjin rubbed his nose and smiled wretchedly. You mean we should bet heavily on her losing? It was obvious that this little girl wouldn't be able to last until the end of the tournament. After all, she couldn't summon her holy beast, use talismans to eat pills, and use hidden weapons. Even those who could use all of the above couldn't last more than 10 rounds. It was obvious how difficult it was to defend the ring. Wei Wei looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. Zhou Danjin was confused by his gaze. He couldn't help but cough and ask, what do you mean? Just say it. His IQ wasn't as high as Wei Wei's. He had already admitted it. So don't look at me like I'm an idiot. There are only 2 ways to bet in the tournament. One is to guess who the final champion will be. The other is to bet on how many rounds a certain arena champion can last. Of course, the odds of betting on the final champion will be higher. If you guess correctly, you'll make a fortune. Then what do you mean? Zhou Danjin glanced at him and asked. I want you to bet heavily on that little girl becoming the final champion. Wei Wei said indifferently. Hearing this, Zhou Danjin and the other 3 mentors all widened their eyes and looked at Mentor Wei Wei in unison. Mentor Wei Wei, you're not joking, right? Betting heavily on something like this wasn't a joke. If one didn't do well, not only would they lose everything, they would also vomit all the money they won before. You have about 18,000 spirit coins on you right now. Wei Wei said with certainty. Bet it all. Zhou Danjin looked like he was going to vomit blood. He shook his head and said, No, I don't have that much. I only have 8,000. Wei Wei looked at him meaningfully. If you don't bet, you'll regret it in the end. No way. The other mentors also felt that Mentor Wei Wei thought too highly of Arbor. It had to be known that no matter what, Xiao Mu was only a 15-year-old little girl. Moreover, they had already restricted her support abilities. If she could still become the ultimate arena champion like this, then how weak would the contestants in this year's underground fighting competition be? Are you going to buy it or not? Wei Wei patted Zhou Danjin's shoulder. It's up to you. In any case, the financial power was in the hands of the wretched little man. In any case, when he didn't earn any money, the one who would cry to the heavens and smash his head against the ground would not be him, Wei Wei. Instructor Wei Wei, how confident are you? The short instructor Zhou Danjin asked cautiously, are you 100% confident? Instructor Wei Wei shook his head. Zhou Danjin stingily put the 18,000 spirit coins back into his sleeve. Then forget it. Why don't we just buy the tickets for every match? You better think it through. Instructor Wei Wei glanced at him coldly. The bets for the arena champion will end by today. At that time, even if you want to go back on your word, you won't be able to buy it. Then, why don't we buy it for 1,000 or 2,000? Wei Wei remained silent and half closed his eyes. He clearly didn't care about this matter and allowed Zhou Danjin to deal with it herself. Anyway, that was all he had to say. Whether he wanted to buy or not, that was up to Instructor Zhou to worry about. In short, no matter what choice he made, he just didn't want to regret it. There was no medicine for regret in this world. Instructor Zhou adhered to the principle of prudence. He quickly held a small meeting with the other 3 mentors and asked for their opinions. Chapter 1740. In the end, the 4 of them reached a consensus. They took out 8,000 spirit coins to gamble and used the remaining 10,000 spirit coins to bet on the regular matches as usual. Hence, Instructor Zhou Danjin went to place his bets with 8,000 spirit coins with a pained expression. The little Stoics team Lychee didn't have the luck to advance to the second match until the end of the day's matches. A light rain fell that night, and the next day, the weather was very hot. It was now August, and a random small inn in Anka City was cheap, but the living environment wasn't too good. Arbor's group planned to look for a better inn in the vicinity after tonight's matches ended. Although the little Stoic wasn't a particular person, they had to find a more comfortable place to stay. After all, they still had to stay in Anka City for more than 20 days, so they couldn't just make do like this forever. This time, Qi Xianxian also expressed her approval. She looked as if she was rich, and her back was straight as a ramrod, as if she had already received the tenfold prize money. Sigh, weren't these people a bit too optimistic? She hadn't even started her first match in the main tournament, so she really didn't know where she got her confidence from. The main tournament had a lot of freedom. As long as you wanted to challenge someone, you could go to the second floor's arena at any time. Early this morning, a brawny man covered in fat jumped onto the second floor's central arena and kicked yesterday's unlucky champion out of the arena in a few moves. This person stood on the central arena with a disdainful expression and occasionally glanced contemptuously at his opponent who challenged him. Once, twice, thrice. When he defeated his opponent in only 3 moves for the 4th time, thunderous cheers erupted from the audience. Ha 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 ha. In the spectator stands, a middle-aged man sitting in the first row of VIP seats touched the emerald ring on his left thumb and glanced at the man with an unsightly expression next to him with a chuckle. Family head Zhu, how was it? Didn't I say that our family's iron pillar would definitely win the title of champion this time? The man with a dark complexion harumphed heavily and turned to look elsewhere. He only said coldly, not necessarily. The true victor will be the one who has the last laugh. Family head you don't need me to teach you this, do you? Family head you snorted coldly. He turned the emerald at his fingertips and sneered, then, Family head Zhu, do you dare to make a private bet with me? How about we bet on the bloodshed vermilion fruit that the Zhu clan found a few days ago? The Zhu family head's face changed dramatically. He sneered and shook his head, no. You. Family head you, who originally wanted to set a trap for family head Zhu and make him fall into it, couldn't help but feel a little annoyed when he saw that family head Zhu was completely ignoring him. Do you think I'm stupid? Zhu Bin coldly glanced at Patriarch Yu. The bloodshed vermilion fruit was an elixir that he had painstakingly found for his only son. It was for the sake of changing his only son's weak physique. Such an important thing was related to his son's life and future. How could he use it to gamble? Patriarch Yu provoked him. To put it bluntly, Patriarch Zhu, you don't dare. Don't you also think that our Iron Pillar will be re-elected as the arena champion? Zhu Bin was silent, but he wasn't the least bit provoked by family head Yu, no matter how unpleasant his words were. TSK, I advise you not to be stupid. In your Zhu clan, can you find anyone who knows how to use this bloodshed vermilion fruit? There's no one at all. Chapter 1741. Don't waste a saint-level spirit fruit, okay? Family head Yu smiled sarcastically at family head Zhu. The bloodshed vermilion fruit was good stuff, but it would be wasted if one did not know how to eat it. The sickly Zhu family had been sick for 8 to 10 years, and he still wanted to get up. TSK. What could he do if he got up? His cultivation base was much lower than his opponent's. What future did he have? He might as well give the bloodshed vermilion fruit to the young talents of the Yu family. For example, his eldest son, Yu Hui. Family head Yu's eyes glinted, and he said to family head Zhu in an indifferent tone, "How about this, family head Zhu, name a price, and I'll buy the bloodshed vermilion fruit from you." You know, even if you find a way to eat that sickly Zhu family head, he can only evolve from a cripple to a normal person. It's very rare for an ordinary person to live a prosperous life on the Shantian continent. Family head Zhu's expression was very ugly, but he pursed his lips and turned away, ignoring family head Yu. Family head Yu said angrily, "Zhu Bin, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. The Zhu family is as famous as the Yu family and the Fang family in Wuxia City, but as you know, my eldest son, Yu Hui, is going to marry the genius second miss of the Fang family at the beginning of next month. When the Fang and Yu families join forces, do you think you'll be our match? Let's see if I'm your match or not." Family head Zhu said coldly. "You." Family head Yu smiled gloomily, and his eyes glinted coldly. "Don't forget that the bloodshed vermilion fruit can't be eaten for more than 10 days. Think about how many days it's been since your family had the bloodshed vermilion fruit. It's been 7 or 8 days. Your family doesn't even have a doctor who knows how to use this cinnabar fruit, so why insist on keeping it? It's useless. If it's useless, I'd rather throw it away like trash than let you Batian, take it for free." "You." Family head Yu laughed instead of being angry. Good, good, good. A strong murderous intent flashed in his eyes, and he did not speak for a long time. No one knew what he was thinking. At this time, the fat man named Tai Zhu had already chased 8 opponents off the stage. At this moment, he was fighting fiercely with a woman in a butterfly dress. She had a graceful figure and her moves were also very agile and swift. From the looks of it, he was also a speed ability user. This big guy is so strong. Qi Xianxian was worried about the young lady on the stage. That young lady looks so slim. Can she beat him? You will lose within 3 moves. Just as Xiao Mu finished speaking, that stout man had already grabbed hold of the butterfly-clothed woman. He laughed so hard that all the fat on his body jiggled, and he raised his hand to caress that young lady's face. "Little wifey, a woman as beautiful as you should just stay at home and wait on your husband. Why did you have to risk your life in the championship? Don't touch me." The woman in butterfly clothes was probably disgusted by the fat man and screamed. "Yo yo yo." The fat man continued to tease, "You're just a woman. If you dare to go up the stage, you should be mentally prepared to be taken liberties with. Hey! Let go of her." The little stoic's icy voice rang out. Qi Xianxian glanced to her side in astonishment, only to discover that the little stoic had disappeared at some point in time. She looked at the stage again and saw the little stoic standing in front of the fat man. Chapter 1742. She stood there, and in front of her stood a brawny man who was as fat as a mountain. The little girl was as thin and weak as a bean sprout. She was pitifully thin. "Are you blind? Can't you see that your opponent is standing in front of you?" The little stoic said coldly. The butterfly-clothed woman struggled in the fat man's hands and took the opportunity to jump away from him. When she passed by Arbor, she nodded gratefully at her and whispered, "Be careful, he's also a speed ability user." Arbor didn't realize that this fat man was also a speed ability user. He was so fat, so how fast could he display? But after the woman's reminder, she became more wary of the fat man. This guy looked as fat as a mountain, but he was actually a speed ability user. It was truly surprising. Ha 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 ha. The fat man called Iron Pillar was clearly amused by Arbor's small figure. He cast a sidelong glance at her and raised one of his eyebrows. "Little girl, you haven't even grown your hair yet, but you're already imitating others and coming to compete. Now, kneel down and kowtow to me. Obediently jump down, and I can spare your life." He he he. Ha. Chuckles rang out from the audience. They had already clearly seen Xiao Mu's petite figure. Although they also recognized that Arbor was the Dark Horse Team Lychee's captain, so what? A team competition and a group competition weren't on the same level. Previously, Team Lychee only defeated Team Lion with the help of the other 3 members. To put it bluntly, their victory was due to their teamwork. But it was different now. Only the stoic captain was standing in front of Iron Pillar. With Iron Pillar's large fist, he could probably beat her to the point of vomiting blood and fainting. Arbor was expressionless, and there was a cold and cheerless expression on her adorable little face. She didn't understand why the people below were laughing wildly. Iron Pillar stood in front of her with his hands on his hips. He was like a pile of white fat floating in front of her like waves. Arbor suddenly summoned a spirit weapon from her inner world. With a flick of her finger, she injected a wisp of mystic energy and indifferently said, "Explode." Then, under everyone's shocked expressions, the spiritual weapon suddenly exploded in the arena. The sound of the explosion had obviously affected the team that was in the middle of a regular season match. The 2 teams hurriedly found a place to hide, no longer caring about continuing the match. Fatty Iron Pillar's shocked expression was still fixed on his face, and his whole body fell backwards. It wasn't until a loud bang was heard, and everyone watched as he smashed into the arena, blood splattering all over the ground, that they suddenly realized. The little stoic threw out a spirit weapon as soon as they met, exploding Tai Zhu to death. What kind of joke was this? If a spirit artifact exploded at such a close distance, it would be strange if he could survive. Didn't you see that the 2 teams below were so nervous that they hurriedly retreated? The stoic face expressionlessly stood on the stage and turned to look at the staff members who stood foolishly in front of the crystal screen with stupefied expressions. "Aren't you going to announce the results?" This lady. Team Lychee's captain, Arbor said calmly. Team Lychee's captain, Arbor, wins. Iron Pillar of the Yu family wins 9 matches. Family Head Yu abruptly stood up from the VIP seats, his eyes wide as he stared fixedly at Arbor. Beside him, Family Head Zhu couldn't help but laugh. "See, didn't I say we would see who would have the last laugh?" Chapter 1743. Yu Baishan's eyes widened as he stared at Arbor in disbelief. He shook his head and said, "That's impossible. That's impossible." His Iron Pillar was killed by a little girl's self-detonation of a spiritual weapon. Why? Yu Baishan's eyes were almost filled with blood. He was very angry, but the Zhu clan's patriarch didn't let him off. He even mocked him with a faint smile. "Didn't Patriarch you say that your Tai Zhu is fully deserving of being the champion this time? Look, the arena champion is lying on the ground like a dead pig." "Shut up!" Yu Batian shouted angrily. Then, he pointed at Arbor and said sternly, "Where are the staff of the underground arena? Aren't you going to say something?" "Referee, that's against the rules. Who would so crudely and unscrupulously throw out a spirit tool and then self-destruct? Even a tycoon wouldn't do that." Ahahaha. Jojo won. Qi Xianxian, who was worried about Jojo, stood up and laughed maniacally as if she had been injected with chicken blood. "You see, Jojo effortlessly killed that lump of fat meat. Look at the eyes of the people around them. TSK, TSK, TSK. Not everyone has the ability to self-detonate a spiritual weapon. In fact, a spiritual weapon was expensive. In Shuntian Prefecture's Wenka city, it was considered a luxury item. Wasn't it a waste to use such a luxury item to self-detonate? Arbor didn't think so. She was going to fight for points. If she didn't take a shortcut, she would be played to death by the instructors. Only an idiot would fight with others one by one. If she saw someone she liked, she would kick them off the stage. If she didn't like them, she would self-detonate. Wasn't that better? The staff came back to their senses and quickly added Arbor's name to the list of arena champions. Of course, Arbor hung the plaque with the arena champion on her waist. She didn't want to stupidly hang the plaque on her chest like a fool. For a moment, quite a number of people were shocked by her thunderous methods. For a short period of time, there was a gap in the number of challengers. Arbor stood idly on the main stage, leaning lazily on the side, waiting for someone to come to him. However, Patriarch Yu refused to comply. He questioned several staff members sternly, but the answers he received were very uniform. The tournament didn't prohibit the use of all kinds of support. In other words, if he wanted to explode his spirit tools like a nouveau riche, he couldn't do anything about it, right? Fortunately, when they first built this underground arena, they knew that once a fight broke out, it would definitely affect the innocent. Thus, they had already reinforced several defenses above the arena. Therefore, when the spirit energy exploded on the iron pillar, it didn't affect anyone else. Unable to seek justice, Family Head Yu could only fling his sleeves angrily and sit back down with a face full of hatred. He had no idea where this little girl came from. He had never seen her in Anka City before. Could it be that he was a young child from some hidden family who had come out to train? As Family Head Yu pondered this, he looked up again and gazed deeply at Xiao Mu. At this moment, Instructor Zhou Danjin, who was sitting in the corner, was so regretful that his intestines almost turned green. However, he still couldn't help but ask, Instructor Wei Wei, is she breaking the rules? She even self-detonated her spirit tool. Didn't it say in the letter that you can use spirit tools as support? Instructor Wei Wei said without even looking up. Chapter 1744. Holy shit, how could a spirit weapon be used like that? Zhou Danjin couldn't help but complain softly, this is too much of a scam. Isn't that so? A square-faced instructor couldn't help but complain, if this little girl uses her spirit weapon to self-destruct in every match to repel her opponents, then she can really defend until the end and become the final champion. The other two instructors looked at each other in dismay. That can't be. If she self-destructed her spirit weapon in every match, then how many spirit weapons would she have to self-destruct to defend until the end? Moreover, if this little girl self-destructed her spirit weapon in every match, would the defensive barrier on the second floor of the arena be able to last until the end? Thinking about it, it didn't seem very likely. Zhou Danjin pursed his lips and said, since that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. Let's just say that her results are valid this time. Rich students were indeed different. They had clearly given so many restrictions, but it was impossible to guard against them, causing her to use such a crooked move. Count. Arbor naturally didn't know that the instructors were privately discussing this. However, if she knew that Instructor Zhou Danjin counted her results as valid, she would definitely snort in disdain. She had Qi Xianxian take out the authentic letters that the instructors had given her and explain to them word by word. The rule about not being able to use divine weapons and being able to use spirit weapons was written by the instructors themselves. Why would they care how she uses this spirit weapon? If she uses it to chop people or self-destruct it, they couldn't care less. Arbor casually patted the arena champion card hanging on her waist. After a quarter of an hour, she turned to the staff in front of the crystal screen and asked impatiently, is there anyone else who wants to challenge me? The place she was standing on was about to grow mushrooms, yet no one had come up to challenge her. Was it because she was too easy to talk to? Manager Tang couldn't help but twitch his mouth as he hurriedly comforted the little girl's emotions. It's probably because Miss Chiao is too powerful. You have to give everyone some time to calm down. As he spoke, he coughed and said, if no one comes up to challenge Miss Chiao in an hour, then today's arena champion will undoubtedly be Miss Chiao. As soon as he finished speaking, an expanse of clamorous noise couldn't help but arise in the surroundings, and it was mixed with many unconvinced questions. However, there was no more noise. That was the rule. If no one dared to challenge Arbor in the next hour, Arbor would become the champion of the day. A few unconvinced youngsters were eager to give it a try, using their eyes to signal others to go first. But in the end, no one dared to go up and give it a try. Everyone felt their teeth ache as they watched the little stoic strolling around the small arena on the second floor. Why did he feel like he was being cheated? "I'll do it." Suddenly, a seemingly elegant young master in white stood up and floated to the small arena on the second floor like a pure white cloud. When he landed on the ground, the white-robed young master's white robes fluttered in the wind. His robes fluttered slightly as he descended from the sky, giving off an indescribable sense of beauty. Arbor was expressionless. Thunderous applause rang out from the audience. "All right. All right. This is the Fong family's genius third young master, right? I didn't expect third young master Fong to also participate in this competition. Oh my god, if I knew third young master Fong would also be participating, then I would have bet on him winning. How laughable. Isn't that third young master Fong from a prestigious patrician family? Why did he also participate in the Underground Fighting Arenas Championship?" Chapter 1745. Haven't you all thought of this reason? Moreover, who was he putting on a show for when he appeared in such a pretentious manner? Didn't he see that the little girl was very dismissive of him? He hovered in the air like a bird and slowly descended. When he landed, he even opened his folding fan and posed very nicely. The little girl rolled her eyes at him. Everyone felt that it was a bit comical when they saw it. Third young master Fong boasted of his elegance, but the little girl didn't even look him in the eye. From Arbor's point of view, this person's appearance really didn't stand out. He was the type of person that Miss Chiao couldn't remember even if she looked at him twice. Of course, third young master Fong was actually quite good looking, but Miss Chiao was the type of person who wouldn't even take a second look at a handsome man like Duanyu, let alone this third young master Fong. They didn't know what he was showing off for. He didn't fly very nicely and posed like a freaking idiot. Although they were far away, Qi Xianxian, Duan Muqing, and the others all had keen eyesight. They could read the little girl's intentions from observing her expression and paying attention to her gaze. It was quite funny when they thought about it. This third young master Fong was probably going on stage to amuse himself. "Little miss, please point." Before third young master Fong could say the word teach, the little girl's figure flashed and suddenly closed in on him. She closed the distance of 3 meters in the blink of an eye. The little girl didn't allow for an explanation and slapped a palm print formed by water spirit directly at third young master Fong's chest. Third young master shouted, "Good timing," but before he could finish speaking, he was already hit by the water spirit palm print. He somersaulted in the air and was blown away by the waves. Everyone, Arbor scuttled forward and swung a small iron fist at third young master Fong's head. Thump, thump, thump. Third young master Fong only felt like his head was smashed by a small hammer 3 times in a row, causing him to feel dizzy and fall to the ground with a thud. "Get down!" Arbor scolded softly. He kicked third young master's lower back. The third young master let out a blood-curdling scream as he rushed towards the edge of the stage. He dangled dangerously on the stage's railing, with half of his body dangling. If not for his 2 legs supporting him on the ground, he would have fallen down by now. Everyone was speechless again. Why did they have a feeling of speechlessness? Was it really good for the little girl to be so cruel? "Get down!" Arbor kicked third young master's lower back again. "No, don't kick. A man's waist." Fuck, it was obvious that this wretched lass was blind. Which budding girl didn't have a spring in her heart? Seeing such an elegant and handsome young master appear in front of her, she couldn't help but be startled. Not only did she not blush, she even raised her fists and beat him to death. Can you really get married like this? You're as barbaric as a man. Are you sure you can find a husband? Before third young Master Fong vomited blood, he hurriedly summoned his mystic beast, a strong yellow horse with tiger spots. It looked a bit strange. When it galloped, its speed was very fast. But when it came to its attack power, it wasn't that strong. The yellow horse leaped slightly and carried third young Master Fong. Cough, cough, cough. Third young Master Fong panted slightly on the horse. He lowered his head and saw that there was a small footprint printed on the front and back of his white shirt. Chapter 1746. Third young Master Fong couldn't help but be flustered and exasperated. You little lady, how could you attack without any explanation? You. Third young Master Fong had probably never seen a little lady who would beat someone to death without saying anything. His handsome face flushed red instantly. He truly had never suffered such a huge loss before. He was chased and beaten by a little lady in front of everyone, and he practically didn't have the strength to retaliate. Arbor frowned slightly. Why wasn't this person going down? With a flick of her finger, a scimitar-like spirit weapon appeared in her hand. Third young Master Fong jumped in fright and galloped 2 steps back on his yellow horse. He was already very close to the edge of the arena on the 2nd floor. You, don't mess around. What do you want to do? Let me tell you, people like you who self-destruct by abusing spirit weapons are. He watched as Arbor channeled a wisp of mystic energy into the spirit weapon and was about to throw it in his direction. Third young Master Fong's eyes dimmed, and he abruptly reached out to pat his yellow horse's head. 1 man and 1 horse galloped into the air. Everyone immediately cheered loudly. So third young Master Fong's extremely ordinary-looking horse actually has wings. At this time, that yellow horse with tiger spots had already flapped its wings and flew up, hovering high above Arbor's head. Arbor's gaze darkened, and her face was displeased. She raised her hands slightly, and a cold glint flitted past her eyes. A move of ice descended, and a violent vortex of spirit energy mixed with converging hailstones swept toward third young Master Fong, whose expression changed drastically. He hastily pressed his yellow horse's head to land on the ground, but before he could think of a way to escape this predicament the little stoic's Frost Wind Slash followed closely behind. Frost Wind Slash was a move that she comprehended on her own from Qing Yuan's moves. When this Frost Wind Slash descended, it directly cut a deep gash in the ground of the entire arena. Broken stones rolled down from the ring, seriously affecting the 2 teams that were competing on the 1st floor. The unlucky teams were hastily pulled by their respective captains and hastily ran to the sides. Get down. Following the little stoic's indifferent voice, third young Master Fong only felt the pressure of that Frost Wind Slash, and his entire person fell down from the edge of the stage. Third young Master Fong let out a miserable scream. The yellow horse seemed to have been frightened by the little girl's Frost Wind Slash. It even forgot to spread its wings. 1 man and 1 beast miserably fell to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. When Arbor looked up, the staff member who was stunned in front of the crystal screen immediately understood and hurriedly said, "Miss Chiao wins this round." At this moment, those who had said that Miss Chiao didn't win with her own ability all shut their mouths. This was the first time the lady had self-detonated her spiritual artifact. She probably didn't think much of her opponent. She probably couldn't be bothered to make a move against such a weakling. An hour later. Because no one else dared to challenge Arbor, Arbor became the youngest champion of the day. When she came down from the 2nd floor of the ring, Arbor was still expressionless. Everyone wanted to see joy and excitement on her face, but they were disappointed. Jojo. Qi Xianxian welcomed her with a face full of smiles and hooked her arm. I knew you would definitely win. Arbor nodded. Later, I'll have Manager Tang calculate how many points we earned. Chapter 1747. Ever since they entered this underground battle arena, they had become anxious. Every now and then, they would want to know how many points their team had. Arbor was still skeptical about gathering enough points to summon a tutor. Based on the character of the tutors from the top academies, who knew if they would give them more small missions when they had enough points. Arbor had just been pulled to a seat by Qi Xianxian when he heard a dong sound from the back door of the battle arena. It was as if someone had forcefully slammed it open. A group of people carried a wooden stretcher and clustered around a middle-aged man. They moved toward Arbor and the others. Everyone curiously glanced at the group of people. When they saw the middle-aged man's appearance, they shut their mouths tightly and didn't say anything else. Family head, it's her. She's the one who attacked young master. Capture Ko Hongwen first. The middle-aged family head coldly shouted. Immediately, 4 or 5 people revealed black ropes in their hands. Without any explanation, they went toward the little fatty, Ko Hongwen. Of course, little fatty wouldn't just sit there and wait for his death. However, he had only just started to move. But when he moved, a few fierce-looking burly men pounced over. They reached out to grab his arms and put ropes around his hands. Arbor really didn't like the way these people acted. They would always come over and attack others for no reason. As the aristocratic families of the Middle Realm, their arrogant and ugly faces had all been inadvertently revealed. Scram! Arbor didn't need to do anything. Duanmu Qing's face darkened. He flicked his sleeves and threw away the ropes that bound the little fatty. Duanmu Qing looked coldly at the middle-aged leader and said coldly, Steward Tang, someone is causing trouble in your arena. Don't you need to do something about it? Steward Tang naturally didn't dare to be negligent. Before his young master left, he had instructed him to take good care of Miss Qiao. These people didn't have eyes. If they offended Miss Qiao and made her unhappy, his young master might think that he didn't do his job well. Steward Tang hurriedly waved his hand with a solemn expression. Let the arena's security personnel come forward and stop the middle-aged man's group. Of course, Steward Tang recognized this middle-aged man. Everyone in Wenka City knew the name of the Ko family's patriarch. Ko family head. Steward Tang cupped his hands towards Ko Dihai, his attitude still quite amiable. These people are friends of my master. May I know why Patriarch Ko is looking for trouble with them? Ko Dihai's expression changed slightly as he looked at Steward Tang with a complicated expression. Of course, he knew that Steward Tang was one of the main people in charge of the underground fighting arena. If he accidentally offended him, it would be quite troublesome. But now, he had no choice but to offend him. His precious son had been turned into a pig's head and face that had not gone down even after a day and night. Instead, it had swelled up even more. Pus would flow out from under his skin if he touched him lightly. Looking at his son lying there crying and screaming, as a father, his heart was tormented. No matter what, he had to capture this little traitor, Ko Hongwen, and deal with him in private. How dare he be so ruthless to his Zhen'er? He, Ko Hongwen, had only himself to blame for everything that had happened to him. He glared coldly at Ko Hongwen with hazy eyes. Little bastard, how dare you be so ruthless to Master's younger brother? What are you still standing there for? Detain them. Detain everyone. Chapter 1748. Steward Tang's expression darkened. He ordered the arena guards to step forward and separate the people the Ko family had brought. Ko Dihai looked at Steward Tang angrily and said, Steward Tang, you and I have lived in peace in Anka City for so many years, and we see each other all the time. I don't want to make things difficult for you. As long as you let me take these people away, the Ko family will continue to support your underground arena's competitions in the future. Steward Tang shook his head. No. What a joke. The young master had personally asked him to take care of this lady. How could he let Ko Dihai deal with her? He secretly gave the servant behind him a look. The servant immediately understood and turned to look for young Master Ding. Tang Cheng. Ko Dihai's expression turned cold. He forced the words out of his gritted teeth. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. As soon as he finished speaking, a heavy pressure surged towards everyone. Arbor and the others immediately realized that the Ko family's patriarch, Ko Dihai, was a spiritual master who had broken through to level 8. With his talent, this was already the limit. That was why the Ko family had been staying in Anka City for so many years. They were not particularly top-notch aristocratic families like the Yu family, but they were not very poor either. At least, they had some reputation in Anka City. When the Ko family's patriarch walked out, people would give him some face. Therefore, he felt a little embarrassed when Tang Cheng rejected him in front of everyone. Arbor looked up and glanced at him without saying anything. Since Steward Tang was so righteous to take on this matter for them, then it was none of her business. Tang Cheng, move aside, Ko Dihai shouted angrily, attracting the attention of many people in the arena. Patriarch Ko, Miss Chiao and her friends are our arena's honored guests and the young master's friends. Please forgive them. I forgive your mother. The Ko family's patriarch cursed in his heart. He pointed at Arbor and said angrily, "This damned girl, you're asking me to forgive you after what you did to my son? Move aside, this has nothing to do with you." Ko Dihai really did not want to make things difficult for Qian Luo's underground arena. After all, those who could open an underground fighting arena in Anka City were all people with some background. Rather than saying that Ko Dihai did not want to offend young Master Ding, it was better to say that he did not want to offend his background. Boom! Ko Dihai launched a probing spiritual attack straight at Arbor and the others. Halfway through, a burst of spiritual energy erupted from Tang Cheng's body and blocked the Ko family head. Ko family head. Tang Cheng's face also became very ugly. Today, if you fight in our Qian Luo's underground battle arena, then it's clear that you want to be our enemy. Am I right? Tang Cheng. Ko Dihai glared angrily and clenched his fists tightly. I don't want to make things difficult for your arena. Get out of my way. That's impossible. Steward Tang assumed a battle stance. The guards of the battle arena swarmed out from all directions and surrounded Ko Dihai and his group. It was obvious that their numbers were more than twice the number of people that Ko Dihai had brought. Ko Dihai was immediately put on the spot. He gritted his teeth for a long time before he suddenly swung his sleeves and said angrily, "Fine. I won't make things difficult for these juniors. However, this damned girl must cure my jeune her." Arbor looked at the Ko family head expressionlessly and did not say anything. He wanted to see how the Ko family head would continue his act. You're asking for treatment with such a bad attitude. Serves you right for not being able to get treatment. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.